Chapter 501. Preparation. What? More than 200 people? How is this possible? Andre's eyes widened in disbelief, almost as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. It's not impossible. I've seen the information with my own eyes. I can even provide you with video evidence. You might even recognize someone, Anduin replied, a smirk playing on his lips as he observed Andre's shock. But it's too exaggerated. It's just a breeding park. It should be fully operational after a few dozen wizards are dealt with. Is it really necessary to have so many people there? Andre questioned, still grappling with the enormity of the situation. Despite Anduin's serious expression, he found it hard to believe. You think it's exaggerated? I thought the same when I first saw it, Anduin mused silently. He knew he had to come up with a plausible explanation to convince Andre. If he revealed that most of these people were civilian wizards, Andre might hesitate to follow through with the plan, fearing the legal implications. Anduin needed Andre's full cooperation, so he decided to paint a more sinister picture. It's not surprising, Anduin said, adopting a grave tone. I found that the wizards in the park are highly organized. I suspect that apart from breeding magical animals, the Silver Spears are also training an army of wizards there. Of course, this is just a suspicion, Anduin added mentally. He knew this excuse was the most suitable, and it wasn't entirely fabricated. There were indeed traces of training in Park Number 1, though most of it was vocational skills training related to handling fantastic beasts. But since there was a training ground and a group of well-trained wizards, Anduin decided to use it to his advantage. Anduin had considered several solutions to address the legality of the wizards in the park. However, he underestimated the impact of the term Wizard Army on someone like Andre. Wizard Army? You mean they are training an army like Grindelwald did back then? Andre's face turned extremely solemn. If this was true, the Silver Spear's activities were not just a criminal case or a political issue. They threatened the entire wizarding world. Andre vividly remembered the chaos caused by Grindelwald's revolution and the formidable saints under his command. Even when the Aurors from several countries joined forces, they struggled against these well-trained wizard troops, who had a stronger fighting spirit than many Aurors because they believed in their cause. This was why the mere mention of the saints in Grindelwald still instilled fear in many wizards. Andre began to consider seeking assistance from Wizard International. If the Silver Spears were indeed training a wizard army, his law enforcement department alone would not suffice. If this is true, then the matter is serious. We must immediately report to Wizarding International and Sir Merlin, and then organize an international joint force to eliminate them before they grow stronger. Andre's eyes sharpened as he looked at Anduin. It's actually... Anduin was taken aback by the other party's words and quickly realized he might have been too forceful. He softened his tone and said, "To deal with this base, I already have a complete plan. We can wipe them all out with minimal losses. It's better to assess their specific situation after taking down this base." Is what you said true? Andre looked at Anduin in surprise. Even if nearly half of the wizard gathering area, which has more than 200 people, are not wizards, it is still not easy to deal with. Yet Anduin seemed so confident. That's right, Anduin nodded affirmatively. The specific action plan is already in place. We just need to gather some intelligence. Blindly attacking will only increase casualties. I also learned that the Silver Spear is not limited to this base in Germany. I am still investigating the area. What we need to do now is keep a low profile and let them continue their usual activities. I need about a week to prepare, and I guarantee we can take it down smoothly. After tending to Anduin's explanation, Andre realized he had been a bit impatient. Despite Anduin's young appearance, his skills were superb. He had gathered so much intelligence in just a few days, which strengthened Andre's trust in him. Okay, I'll listen to you. I'll stay put. Do you need my cooperation? Andre asked. I need you to screen out 10 to 20 Aurors whom you can absolutely trust over the next few days and have them on standby. For now, just screen them without leaking any information. Once I determine the timing, I'll notify you, and you'll need to coordinate with the manpower I recruit from the UK, Anduin explained. Andre nodded affirmatively. A joint secret operation? He pondered for a moment before responding. No problem. I'll use the border patrol as an excuse to transfer some of my trusted men. This operation will not only target the wizards associated with the Silver Spear, but also involve rescuing a large number of captive magical animals. You'll need to choose aurors with relevant experience. Additionally, if we can find the locations of other breeding parks from those wizards, we may need to engage in further combat. Be prepared for that, Anduin warned. Haha, don't worry. All the aurors under my command are experienced. Whether it's against wizards or magical animals, you can count on us, Andre said confidently, waving his hand as if the hundreds of wizards were no problem. As long as you're aware, Anduin said, not caring whether Andre was bragging. He then took out a silver square amulet, half the size of a mobile phone, from his pocket. Keep this with you. I'll use this to contact you. When I do, the amulet will send a signal, and the message I send will appear on the mirror, along with the time and place to gather. Oh, this is a good thing. I've heard of the Silver Flash Trading Company under your name. Is this one of their products? I've never seen it before, Andre said, accepting the amulet happily and making a joke. This is just a trial sample. It's not on the market yet. The materials needed for this are not cheap, so don't lose it, Anduin replied with a smile. After cracking the spell on the mask and obtaining the Sphinx blueprint, he could make many communication props similar to mobile phones. The one he gave Andre was a low-end version that could send text messages, unlike the more advanced props he and Hog used, which allowed direct communication over short and medium distances. The optimized communication magic has indeed been developed, but commercializing it remains a challenge due to the high costs involved. Even with the relatively mature guide glue technology from Sphinx, the expenses are only marginally lower than those of Goblin Mithril. This cost issue prevents mass production. In the wizarding world, money alone cannot buy such precious materials. Among the components used in synthesizing magic gel is Goblin Mithril, which is not readily available for purchase. Although efforts are being made to find substitutes, achieving a technological replacement will take time. After hearing Anduin's instructions, Andre laughed. Don't worry, if this operation is successful and you hit the Silver Spear well, you will be handsomely rewarded. If you need materials, just ask. Seeing Andre's bold and confident demeanor, Anduin couldn't help but smile knowingly. He thought to himself, I don't care about your small matters. My target is the wealth accumulated by Silver Spear over the past few decades. Having reached a consensus with Andre, Anduin didn't linger. He left the Ministry of Magic after repeatedly instructing Andre to keep the news confidential. Upon returning to his residence, Hog brought him some good news. My lord, something happened to Claremont. The fireplace in his black market is indeed a passage to the breeding base, Hog exclaimed excitedly upon seeing Anduin. Oh, did he return to the park directly through the fireplace? What password did he use? Anduin asked. He had been preparing on two fronts. One, finding a way to directly crack the Protectee V shield, and two, following Claremont's path to find another way into the park. Hog shook his head. That fireplace doesn't lead directly into the park. The situation is more complicated. You'd better see it for yourself. After noticing Claremont's unusual behavior, I recorded it with video equipment. Hog pointed to a device resembling a large, old-fashioned TV. This was a semi-finished product developed by Anduin, functioning similarly to a Muggle video recorder, but capable of recording magical images more clearly. End of this chapter. Chapter 502, The Disappearing Cabinet. At this time, in the video device, Anduin saw Claremont head to the black market immediately after finishing his official duties at his own magic supplies shop. He assembled a large amount of materials from the black market warehouse using a space bag. These materials included a huge amount of food, drinks, books, various daily necessities, and more. It seemed that in addition to managing Park Noir, Claremont was also responsible for transporting daily necessities to the base. After many days of investigation and understanding in Shaltir and the park, it was found that the wizards inside the base also spent money when using various daily necessities, and the prices were much higher than those outside. Clearly, Claremont was very business-minded. He used goods from the outside world to earn the salaries of the staff inside the base, thereby returning the funds. Such a strategy could save a lot of operating costs. After Claremont packed everything up, he went straight to his private office. He opened a hidden mechanism that Anduin and others had seen once before, and then went directly into the fireplace. However, unlike ordinary wizards who shouted place names when using the fireplace, Claremont didn't make a sound after sprinkling flue powder. He simply let the flames in the fireplace wrap around him until he disappeared. From this, Anduin was able to judge that the fireplace was equipped with a single-threaded flue network, which could only lead to one place. But when Claremont reappeared, he didn't arrive directly inside the breeding base as Anduin had expected. Instead, he arrived at a place similar to a warehouse. There were 4 or 5 meter high shelves everywhere, filled with all kinds of sundries and supplies. These supplies were not like what Anduin had seen in the basement of No. 277 Diagon Alley, which resembled a shelter stockpile. The items here were mostly useless garbage, damaged tables, chairs, benches, and other shabby furniture covered with dust. There were also many outdated, discarded books and periodicals of little value. This was simply a dump for storing sundries. After Claremont entered, he navigated through the large warehouse, turning east and west until he reached a corner. He stopped in front of a dirty, pointed cabinet. Immediately afterwards, Anduin saw Claremont open the cabinet and slip inside. After he closed the cabinet door and quickly opened it again, the scene outside the cabinet had changed, as if he had been transported inside the breeding base. "This is the Vanishing Cabinet?" After seeing Claremont's behavior, Anduin immediately recognized the object in front of him. His eyes widened with curiosity and longing. "The Vanishing Cabinet? What is that?" That old guy suddenly moved into the park using this thing. "It's simply amazing," Hogg asked aloud after hearing Anduin's exclamation. The Vanishing Cabinet is a type of alchemy equipment that contains powerful space magic. It consists of 2 cabinets that can be directly connected, no matter how far apart they are. "It is very magical," Anduin explained. "I have never seen the real thing before, only read about it in some rare alchemy secret books. This kind of equipment was invented by an unknown wizard hundreds of years ago. However, due to the precious materials and complicated production process, not many were made. Over time, even the production process was lost, and I thought this kind of thing had completely disappeared. I didn't expect to see the real thing here." Anduin, fascinated by these miraculous alchemy creations, couldn't help feeling a little emotional after seeing it. The real Vanishing Cabinet. Then Claremont used the Vanishing Cabinet to connect the breeding base. Doesn't this mean that 2 sets of Vanishing Cabinets could also be used in the other 2 bases representing the Silver Spear? Hogg naturally thought aloud. "No." Anduin shook his head at Hogg's words. "We can't make such a quick judgment. The rarity of this kind of equipment is beyond your imagination. It's unlikely that the Silver Spear has many of these, and it's possible that none were assigned to Claremont by the club." "You mean to say that this Vanishing Cabinet belongs to Claremont?" Hogg tilted his head in confusion. "There's a possibility," Anduin replied. "If the Silver Spear had a powerful tool like a Vanishing Cabinet, it could be used for many things, such as cross-border smuggling." "Ah? How many things can be smuggled in such a small, broken cabinet? Few of those magical animals can fit in it," Hogg responded skeptically. "You," Anduin said, glancing at Hogg speechlessly. "This is the wizarding world. If things are too big to fit, don't you know how to make them smaller? Have you forgotten that you have the ability to shrink objects? Although I don't know the specific principles of the Vanishing Cabinet, and I don't know if there is a limit to its range, records suggest that the connection distance of this kind of equipment is almost unlimited. The Silver Spear only needs to transport one of them to America. When they need to smuggle magical animals, they can just shrink them down and pass them through." After listening to Anduin's explanation, Hogg suddenly understood. Indeed, even if such a useful tool couldn't connect as far as the Americas, it would still be effective for other European countries. With the Vanishing Cabinet, the efficiency of smuggling could be greatly increased, and there would be no need to waste it in such a place. Entering the breeding base directly from the outside, as long as someone inside helps to open the door, is not too troublesome. The reason Anduin and the others found it tricky was because they wanted to pass through the outer shield without alerting the enemies inside. Then it seems that Claremont is not completely devoted to the silver spear. He actually hid such a valuable item, Hogg said, covering his mouth and smiling at the thought. Naturally. You also heard the conversation he had with the Golden Snidget before. Claremont has always wanted to become an official member of the Silver Spear. He must have kept this powerful tool for when he officially joins the club, Anduin said with a cold smile. Hey, from what you said, this old guy is quite ambitious. With his resources and this kind of smuggling tool, if Claremont really joins the club, he might be promoted to the head of the Silver Spear within 2 years, Hogg remarked, now holding Claremont in higher regard. Indeed. I guess that's why the Golden Snidget didn't let him join the club so quickly. The supply of elixirs in the Silver Spear is already tight enough. Adding another member would make it even more troublesome, Anduin said, glancing mockingly at Claremont in the picture. At this time, with the help of Claremont's perspective, Anduin was finally able to glimpse the situation inside the central spire. The entire core hub was divided into upper and lower floors. The lower floor was a small warehouse where a lot of materials were piled up, including ordinary living supplies and some products of magical animals. For example, there was insect honey produced by Billywig, fire ash snake eggs and shed skins, some dragon eggshells and dragon scales, horns of bicorns and horned camels, jars of poisonous horn explosives, and more. It was clear that a lot of byproducts of magical animals were stored here, which likely helped alleviate part of the operating costs of the park. The vanishing cabinet was also placed there. Upon arriving at the steeple, Claremont immediately ascended to the second floor. This area housed the core of the magic circle that encompassed the entire park. Although referred to as the second floor, the roof was almost imperceptible, giving the room a vast, open feel. The structure bore a resemblance to the alchemy room of the British Ministry of Magic, featuring a large, square room inscribed with numerous spells on the ground and surrounding walls. In the center of the room stood a slender stone pillar that extended upward, reaching through the hollow space above to the very top. Anduin suspected that even the tip of the minaret was part of this stone pillar. Upon arriving, Claremont took out his wand and approached the stone pillar for a routine inspection. He frequently held the pillar, checking for something, and occasionally cast weakly fluctuating spells with his wand. His focus remained solely on the stone pillar, ignoring the magical inscriptions on the ground and walls. Despite Anduin's careful observation, he couldn't glean much information from the screen. "How about it, my lord? Did you find anything?" Hogg asked, noticing Anduin repeatedly switching the video back and forth. "The findings are minimal," Anduin replied, shaking his head. The stone pillar in the center is similar to the one in the alchemy room of the British Ministry of Magic. Its function is akin to an amplifier. Claremont's inspection is merely to ensure this function remains normal and to prevent any interruption in the transmission of magical power. The core driving spells of the protective circle are inscribed on the ground, but Claremont shows no intention of maintaining that part. It's unclear whether he is unaware of this aspect. "That's quite possible," Hogg mused thoughtfully. "Although Claremont runs a magic supply store, he's not a professional alchemist. It's unlikely that the Silver Spear would disclose the entire blueprint of the core hub to him. Perhaps the ground charms are made of high-grade materials, ensuring their quality and reliability." "Indeed, that makes sense," Anduin agreed, nodding at Hogg's assessment. "The Silver Spear likely aims to establish Park No. 1 as a permanent base, investing heavily in constructing a robust core magic circle. No wonder the shield's strength is so formidable. Despite several attempts, I haven't been able to breach it from the outside. However, it's fortunate that we've discovered an alternative passage to enter." End of this chapter. Chapter 503, Successfully Infiltrated. "You mean to go directly along the path from Claremont to the base? That's a good idea, but what about the other 2 parks? If our speculation is true, the other 2 bases should not be directly connected to the interior passage," Hogg asked, puzzled. "I don't think you're making yourself stupid by staring at the surveillance all day." Anduin gave Hogg a knowing look. "Since we can penetrate into the core hub, We can naturally study the protective magic circle there. I've broken the barrier before, and I think I still have this confidence. Hogg scratched his head in embarrassment. How could he forget this? The configurations of the 3 breeding parks are basically the same. Breaking open the other 2 without a sound should be straightforward. After thinking it over, Hogg showed an excited look. Since that's the case, when are we going to act? I'll take the lead in the charge. Don't rush. The preparations haven't been completed yet. Have you figured out how to arrange these hundreds of people and the large group of magical animals? Our priority now is to prepare and quickly find out the safety of that passage, Anduin said, standing up. My lord, are you going to explore the way now? Hogg, who was already very familiar with Anduin, asked hastily. Yes, this is the best time. It will be safer to sneak into Claremont's black market now that he has just returned to the park. After all, the shielding magic in the park is indistinguishable from friend to foe. Even if I am in the other party's dark room or in that warehouse and accidentally trigger some alarm, as long as the intensity is not particularly strong, it will not be transmitted into the park, Anduin explained his plan. Wonderful, Hogg nodded as if suddenly enlightened. Let's take the opportunity of his inconvenient communication in the park to walk Claremont's road. But are you going to enter the park along the way? Wait until I get there to see the situation. You should pay attention to the movements of Claremont and Golden Snidget. If anything unusual happens, contact me immediately. With that, Anduin disappeared in place with an apparition. When he reappeared, he was already at the black market managed by Claremont. Since it was still daytime, the black market hadn't started to operate, and there were only a few wizards in the manor. They didn't seem to be patrolling or wandering around with any discipline. After all, this was not a fully enclosed place like the park. Their duty was nothing more than to maintain law and order. Seeing this, Anduin didn't hesitate. He cast the illusion charm on himself and found Claremont's office smoothly. This office had some basic warning magic, but it was useless to Anduin. It didn't take much effort to break in. After casting a shielding spell on the room, he directly opened the door to the dark room. Sure enough, multiple warning spells are placed in this dark room. If Claremont is not in the park at this time, he might be alarmed, Anduin thought as he hid in front of the dark room. After careful inspection with detection equipment, he figured out the internal structure. Without much effort, Anduin found a way to bypass these protective magics and successfully entered the dark room. At this moment, Anduin didn't immediately go to study the fireplace. Instead, he focused his attention on the black mirror. This prop could combine 2 functions of communication and summoning, which had intrigued Anduin from the beginning. He took the opportunity to examine it. However, for the sake of safety, Anduin did not take the risk of uncovering the flannelette covering it. Although the other party only appeared after Claremont and Golden Snidget sent a signal last time, Anduin decided to proceed with caution. Anduin carefully inspected the black mirror, which had the ability to directly transfer the Golden Snidget. Using a magnifying glass-style detector, he examined the side frame and rear of the mirror, then lifted a corner of the velvet covering to inspect the mirror itself. He found that the craftsmanship of this floor-to-ceiling mirror was exceptionally high, and the materials used were very expensive. Anduin was certain that at least 2 ounces of refined mithril had been incorporated into the mirror. However, he noted that the transmission principle was similar to the Flu network, meaning its range was limited. No wonder the Golden Snidget is only using it for communication instead of smuggling. It turns out it's just a showy product, Anduin mused. To him, this miraculous floor-to-ceiling mirror was just a cost-effective device with a limited range of action, not exceeding 200 kilometers and incapable of reaching foreign countries. But if I follow this floor-to-ceiling mirror and enter in the reverse direction, can I find the Golden Snidget along the way? This guy is shrouded in a cloud of mystery, and even now I have not been able to accurately locate his position, Anduin pondered, looking at the mirror thoughtfully. He had discovered more than once that the Golden Snidget could appear in multiple places simultaneously. Anduin was always wary of the opponent's ability to clone himself. He wasn't even sure if the Minister Pete he had been following was actually the Golden Snidget himself. The idea of doppelgangers suddenly flashed through his mind, making Anduin's eyes light up as if he had grasped a key point. Avatar? Is there really such a magical spell in this world? This is a bit unbelievable, he thought, shaking his head helplessly. Now was not the time to dwell on these thoughts. The purpose of his trip was to confirm whether the access to the park was safe. The secret of the Golden Snidget and what lay behind the Black Mirror would have to be considered later. After prioritizing his tasks, Anduin turned back and leaned against the fireplace next to him. After some inspections, he determined that there was nothing unusual about the fireplace. He imitated Claremont's method and teleported to the warehouse full of sundries. The warehouse was also underground, and Anduin circled it several times, but could not find a door. Although there was no powerful warning magic installed, anti-apparition spells were in place, so the only way to get there was through the fireplace. But since this is underground, the shuttle curse should be usable, Anduin thought to himself. He tried it and found that it was very smooth to drill into the ground. Since that's the case, I don't need to go through so much trouble when we officially take action later. I can record the actual location here and then use the shuttle curse to break in directly. Anduin nodded inwardly. There was a black mirror in the dark room that the Golden Snidget could pass through, so it was better not to enter from the dark room at will. He found a corner and deployed a locator to capture the warehouse's location. After finishing this work, Anduin went to the disappearing cabinet. He didn't open it immediately, but took out a magnifying glass to study it like a scientist. This time, the inspection was not as easy. The magic principles and complexity of the spells contained in the disappearing cabinet were far more intricate than those of the floor-to-ceiling mirror. Anduin studied it for a long time, but didn't get any clues. Sure enough, there's a lot to it, Anduin thought, not surprised. If this kind of alchemy equipment, which was nearly lost in the wizarding world, could be researched so easily, it wouldn't be so rare. The research couldn't be completed for a long time. Anduin stood still for a moment, contemplating the treasure before him. He knew he couldn't move it without revealing his secrets. The itch to explore gnawed at him, but he decided to keep it out of sight and out of mind. He opened the cupboard door and slipped inside. His goal was to explore the core hub, confident that no alarms would be triggered there. In the core area of a magic circle, like the alchemy room, there couldn't be too many sources of interference. Casting spells or setting up magic barriers could disrupt the core magic flow. Just like the alchemy room Anduin had repaired at the British Ministry of Magic, any magic interference would only be temporarily blocked and could be restored with a bit of effort. However, the core hub of Park No. 1 supported the external magic cover, and even a small mistake could expose it. No sensible person would take such a risk. Sure enough, Anduin's entry into the park through the disappearing cabinet was seamless. After successfully infiltrating, he didn't rush to explore the steeple. He knew it was the cleanest place in the entire park, and Claremont wouldn't come there anytime soon. Instead, he took out a communication amulet and activated it, placing a wireless headset-shaped communicator on his ear. Inside the park, Shaltier, who was playing with the little Thunderbird in the shed, suddenly felt a jolt. She took out a similar device from her tactical vest and put it on her ear. "My lord, are you starting the operation now? I'm not mentally prepared yet," Shaltier asked, a bit panicked after putting on the earphones. She knew the protective magic circle here cut off their communication, and now that she suddenly received a message from Anduin, it meant he had either broken the magic circle or was now inside the park. Anduin reassured her, "The operation hasn't started yet, but I have successfully sneaked into the park. How is the situation on your side?" "It's only been a few days since you came in. This speed is too fast," Shaltier said, still recovering from the shock. She then responded, "The situation on my side is okay. I stay with little Thunderbird during the day and go out for a walk at night if I have nothing to do, but it's too uncomfortable not being able to take a bath for several days. Sir, you'd better get me out quickly." End of this chapter. Chapter 504. The action begins. It's not the right time yet. I'm in a special position and can't directly enter the park. You have to hold on for a few more days, Anduin said sternly. In the meantime, I need you to complete a task. Ah? So I have to stay in this crappy zoo even longer? I feel like if I stay here any longer, I might actually turn into an animal, Shaltir complained, rubbing the little thunderbird under her. Over time, she had grown quite fond of the little creature. She felt that if this continued, she might even learn to speak bird language. After venting her frustration, Shaltir asked, "All right, what task do you need me to do?" "Don't worry. If this operation is a complete success, I'll ask Chi-Chi to make Maosewang for you for 10 days straight, so you can eat to your heart's content," Anduin said, trying to comfort her. "The next few days are crucial. I need you to keep an eye on the residential area and take a detailed inventory of the living conditions of all the wizards. It needs to be detailed down to how many dormitories there are in total and how many people live in each house. Hog's surveillance cameras have limited visibility, and there may be discrepancies in the numbers," he continued. "At the same time, it would be best to find out the internal layout of those standard houses, including how many floors and rooms they have. I noticed that the standard dormitories are basically uniform, so inspecting one should be enough. Find out what's going on inside those dormitories? No problem. I can remotely control a monitoring spider to go in and then let Hog record everything," Shaltir said confidently. But then she hesitated, feeling something was off. "My lord, are you planning to wipe out these wizards? There are more than 200 people here. Is it really okay to do this? I don't want to become an internationally wanted criminal." Anduin could understand Shaltir's concerns and was somewhat impressed by her depth of thought. "Don't worry, I've already arranged everything that will follow," he said with a cold grin. "Not only will this operation not get you into trouble, but if you want, I can also make you a big hero." "A big hero? Are you sure?" Shaltir was confused. They were discussing kidnapping hundreds of people, yet Anduin made it sound honorable. "Don't worry, if anyone gets into trouble, it will be me first. I wouldn't joke about something like this," Anduin reassured her, but didn't reveal any more details. "Okay, I understand," Shaltir said, deciding to trust Anduin's wit and scheming. It was better to let him handle the complicated parts. "All right, then the call is over. Complete the task as soon as possible. The faster your progress, the sooner I can act. I've also informed Saul. He will notify you when I start the action," Anduin instructed. "Saul? You mean this little thunderbird?" Shaltir looked confused. "Wait, when did you guys contact each other? And you even named it? Did you make a mistake?" But Anduin didn't have time for further conversation and hung up the communication. "Hello? Hello?" Shaltir called out loudly, but there was no response. Frustrated, she got up and lightly knocked on the head of the little thunderbird, Saul. "You guys are too disrespectful, secretly contacting the adults without telling me." Shaltir was fuming with anger. "And you let them choose names casually, and you two haven't even met each other yet. You just trust him like that? Who met whom first? He's just a scumbag who starts things in chaos and ends up abandoning them." Thinking of Shaltir, she couldn't be more furious. She flapped her little wings and slammed Saul's head hard. The little thunderbird, Saul, was completely ignorant of Shaltir's anger. He had no idea what Shaltir was upset about. He thought the little bat was just full and wanted to play with him. Happily, he took Shaltir and rolled on the ground, but the sudden blow almost made Shaltir spit out her lunch. Meanwhile, Anduin began his investigation in the steeple after explaining Thin Gius to Shaltir. His anti-detection methods were far superior to Azalea's. He meticulously eliminated all traces, including footprints and smells. The first floor of the entire spire was similar to what he had seen from Claremont's perspective. It was filled with byproducts of some magical animals. Although these items were expensive, Anduin wasn't in a rush to search them now. What caught Anduin's attention was the gate of the minaret. Since no security magic could be set inside the minaret, the gate relied on physical security methods. There were 6 locks on the gate, all of which were magic anti-theft locks engraved with the unlock curse. Inside, there were simple anti-theft devices like metal cables to prevent breaking in and special warning bells. What Anduin found amusing was that these measures were designed to prevent outsiders from entering, making it completely undefended for those inside. However, dismantling these hardcore anti-theft measures was not easy to camouflage and recover, so he wasn't planning to wander around the park just yet. After inspecting the first floor, Anduin moved up to the second floor, where the main body of the magic circle was laid out. He crouched down to study the structure of the magic circle carefully. This research kept him busy for more than 2 hours. As evening approached, Anduin, worried that Claremont might return at night, left the park by the same route, ensuring he cleared all traces of his presence. It was already late at night when Hogg, who was waiting at the residence, saw Anduin again. "My lord, how is the situation? Did everything go well?" Hogg asked, noticing Anduin's relaxed demeanor. "I have basically figured it out. I have also tested the working principle of the magic circle in 2 other parks. The situation is very good. The cracking work can come to an end. Next, we need to step up the preparation of materials," Anduin replied. He then instructed Hogg to pay close attention to the surveillance images sent back by Shaltir over the past 2 days and to collect all the necessary information. Anduin sent another letter to Newt, clearly explaining the list of materials he estimated and the number of manpower needed, asking the other party to complete the preparations within a week. After finishing all this, Anduin locked himself in the alchemy laboratory again. He was like a contractor who had received a notice to complete the construction period in a short time, transforming into a relentless production machine. In the following days, Anduin stayed mostly in the hotel room, but even so, the actions of the other parties were still under the control of Hogg, who was in charge of collecting information. Claremont's routine of visiting the magic supply shop, the black market, and the number 6 park continued. According to Hogg, the old man slept less than 4 hours a day and was either performing official duties or on his way to perform them. Recently, Claremont received 3,000 galleons from Golden Snidget. However, it would take some time to collect the remaining 2,000 galleons, so Anduin didn't see the need to rush. As for Pete, through his interactions with Anduin, it became clear that he was still entangled with those troublesome merchants. The immediate issues were nearly resolved. At the Silver Spear headquarters, Anduin learned from the Fire Ash Snake, who was speaking to himself in the reception room, that he had recently passed the promotion assessment for the other 2 Silver Spears. This time, the process went smoothly, essentially just a formality. As long as the minimum standard was met, the Ash Snake would approve it. However, this made the Ash Snake reflect for a long time, clearly displeased with such procedural shortcuts. Meanwhile, the Golden Snidget visited the Silver Spear headquarters again and withdrew a large sum of money from the warehouse. Anduin speculated that it was likely the same amount he had handed over to Claremont. During this time, Minister Pete remained at the Ministry of Magic without any noticeable changes. Anduin even learned through Andre that Pete was in a meeting with a wizard from Wizengamot at that time, which Andre confirmed in person. This confirmed that Pete and the Snidget could indeed appear in 2 places simultaneously, making Anduin even more cautious. He had a strong feeling that if he couldn't uncover Pete's secret, he would be at a disadvantage in any confrontation. Anduin hoped that by destroying these breeding parks, he could disrupt his opponent's plans and force him to reveal his weaknesses. On the other side, Shaltir completed her task efficiently. It took her only 3 days to gather information on all the staff dormitories and to manipulate the monitoring spider to explore 2 of them. Anduin's guess was correct. The dormitories in the residential area were standardized, with each building having the same layout. 6 days after Anduin infiltrated the breeding park, he was fully prepared. That night, carrying a rare suitcase, he quietly left Dudden House. When Anduin reappeared, he was thousands of miles away, in an uninhabited forest in West Germany. Upon reaching his target location, he stood quietly, as if waiting for something. After nearly an hour of patient waiting, the space not far from him suddenly flickered. An elderly man, also carrying a suitcase, appeared in the clearing. End of this chapter. Chapter 505, Manpower. Anduin immediately stepped forward to greet the figure that appeared. "Mr. Scamander, I'm sorry for making you come out so late at night. The person who appeared in the open space was Newt Scamander. He greeted Anduin with a smile. I should be the one to apologize for keeping you waiting. Newt twisted his neck uncomfortably. But speaking of it, I haven't used a portkey in a long time. I prefer Muggle vehicles. They take longer, but they're more comfortable, and you can enjoy the scenery along the way. After joking, Newt looked around. Why hasn't Andre arrived yet? Didn't we agree to gather together? I came early to ensure everything was set up in advance, Anduin replied, checking his pocket watch. There are still about 10 minutes before they arrive. Why don't you let the others out first, so they don't get overwhelmed? Haha, you underestimate them. Those guys are probably just bored right now. Newt joked. He then placed his suitcase on the ground, opened the lid, and called inside. We're here. Come out. So fast. My butt is still warm. A rough voice came from the suitcase before a ferocious face poked out. It was Moody. After looking around, he focused on Anduin. I knew you were reliable. You helped us catch a big fish in just a few days. Before Anduin could reply, a female voice came from the box beneath Moody. Moody, you idiot, don't block the exit. No one likes to face your disgusting ass. Moody's fierce face turned red with embarrassment, and he quickly crawled out of the box. Amelia, who was following Moody, finally climbed out and gave him a dissatisfied look. It was clear that being behind Moody was not a pleasant experience for her. With the two senior officials of the law enforcement department no longer blocking the way, others began to emerge from the suitcase. The British striker team was the first to appear. Except for the 12 members of the elite team protecting Minister Budnor in the UK, the remaining 10 members were present, including Captain Moody and Vice Captain Scrimger. In addition to these strikers, 12 elite aurors also showed up one by one. These were old acquaintances of Anduin, veterans who had fought alongside him in the Northern Ireland War, including the familiar face of May Weissy. The British Ministry of Magic had made a significant effort for this operation, summoning nearly half of the combatants from the law enforcement department for support. However, the last 3 people to emerge were somewhat unexpected: Hagrid, Kettleburn, and Azalea. Hagrid, Professor Kettleburn, why are you two here? Anduin asked, surprised. While it made sense for Azalea, a member of the Department of Management and Control of Magical Creatures, to be there to help with the magical animals, it was unexpected to see Hagrid and Professor Kettleburn. After all, Hogwarts was still in session, and they were key administrators and professors. Hey, Anduin, you didn't tell this old guy that you were up to something. You really don't think of me as a friend, Kettleburn said, dragging his prosthetic leg and leaning on a cane as he limped over to Anduin. I heard you found hundreds of magical animals from those smugglers. We couldn't just stay behind. We came with Dumbledore's consent. The school is prepared, and it will only delay a few days. We can make up lessons for the students when we return. Is that so? Anduin looked at Scamander with some surprise. That's right, Newt nodded. Upon hearing that, Anduin sighed. This is what I asked Dumbledore to arrange. Considering the large number of magical animals that need to be transferred and properly cared for, I can't manage it alone. So, I specifically requested the help of these 3. Kettleburn has extensive experience in handling magical creatures, and Hagrid has unique methods for dealing with high-risk magical animals. Don't worry, Anduin. Hagrid, who was as large as a small giant, responded with a smile. We won't cause you any trouble. When we think of all those poor creatures imprisoned by smugglers, we can't sleep at night. Anduin could only nod helplessly. It wasn't a bad thing to have their assistance in taking care of the magical animals. Just as he was exchanging greetings with the new arrivals, the sound of rushing wind filled the air. Everyone looked up to see Andre and a dozen others arriving on broomsticks, hovering in the sky. Look at my brain. I almost forgot about this, Anduin muttered, quickly turning off the shielding jammer beside him. He had used it to prevent intrusions, but it also made it difficult for Andre and his team to find them. As soon as the jammer was off, Andre spotted everyone on the ground and led his subordinates to land. Amelia, Newt, Moody, long time no see. Andre greeted them with a big smile as he landed. You too, Andre. After all these years, you still have the same energy. Amelia responded warmly, shaking his hand excitedly. And you are as beautiful as ever, Andre complimented, his tone sweet. He then looked around, surprised by the number of people present. I didn't expect you to have so much support. Are you in command this time? No, we are all following Anduin's lead for this operation. I believe you've met him before, so you should be familiar, Amelia said, glancing at Andre before turning her gaze to Anduin. He's in charge? Andre asked, looking between Amelia and Anduin with a puzzled expression. Wasn't he supposed to be doing preliminary investigations, and now you have so many well-trained aurors listening to him? Andre's skepticism was understandable. He had met Anduin once before and had thought him too young for such responsibilities. Now, seeing him in charge of a large-scale operation was surprising. Was it really appropriate to let a young man lead, especially when it meant the director of the Department of Law Enforcement would be under his command? Andre's doubts were shared by the 16 aurors beside him, who also looked skeptical. Hey, Gorilla, don't underestimate Anduin, Moody interjected, leaning on his crutches. He's not like you with your brain full of muscles. This entire action plan was devised by him. If you don't listen to him, who else would you listen to? You cripple. Your mouth is still as foul as ever, Andre retorted, giving Moody a sidelong glance. However, seeing that Moody, who had high self-esteem, accepted this arrangement, and noticing that the 20-odd aurors behind him also seemed to take it in stride, Andre's doubts began to wane. He wasn't one to be overly critical, so he didn't press the issue further. Anduin, unfazed by Andre's skepticism, decided to let his actions speak for themselves. Since everyone is here, let's start the briefing. Please follow me, he announced, opening his space suitcase and gesturing for everyone to move. Ah, I thought we were going to start the action immediately after gathering. Why do we need a briefing? One of the aurors asked, puzzled. Andre was puzzled by the mention of a meeting. He had assumed they would head straight to the base after the meeting. You fool, you might know how to fight with your eyes closed, but do you even understand tactics? Moody, standing beside him, shot Andre a disdainful look before leading the way into Anduin's suitcase. What are you talking about? Everyone knows you're the most reckless person in the UK, and now you have the nerve to lecture me about tactics? Andre muttered under his breath, feeling a bit stung by Moody's words. However, noticing that none of the British support personnel around them objected, he suppressed his doubts and led his subordinates into the suitcase. Upon entering, Andre was taken aback by the scene inside. They found themselves in a temporary meeting room that could accommodate at least dozens of people. In the center of the room was a U-shaped conference table formed by several rectangular tables connected together, surrounded by chairs. A large sand table occupied the middle of the conference table, and a big curtain hung behind it. To Andre's surprise, a dog wearing glasses was sitting at the head of the conference table. Anduin and his subordinates seemed equally confused, unsure of what Anduin had planned. Anduin, who was the last to enter, noticed the bewildered expressions on their faces and quickly addressed them. Director Anduin, don't just stand there. Take your seat quickly. We are short on time, and the meeting agenda is quite extensive. It's best to get straight to the point. With that, Anduin took his seat in the middle of the conference table, next to Hogg, and gestured for Andre to sit beside him. Chapter 506, Operation Code, Concentric Circles. Seeing the British aurors seated with practiced ease, Andre felt like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. He hurried forward and took a seat at the conference table. At this time, Andre, Anduin, Hogg, Amelia, Moody, Newt, and Kettleburn were seated in the first row, with the German aurors and British aurors on either side. Once everyone was seated, Anduin turned to Hogg and said, Hogg, everyone is here. Let's start when you're ready. Yes, my lord, Hogg responded, adjusting his glasses in a deliberate manner. Hello, everyone. The first phase of the combat meeting is about to start. I am the meeting host, Hogg. This operation will be jointly carried out by the German and British law enforcement departments, and the operation code name is Concentric Circle. The moment Hogg began to speak, everyone on the German side, including Andre, was taken aback. They were listening to a dog give them a meeting. Andre was bewildered. He swore that no one would believe him if he told his friends about this. He might even be ridiculed. His subordinates also gave him questioning looks, as they were unaware of the purpose of their presence before arriving. However, Andre noticed that the British aurors remained unfazed, so he signaled his team to stay calm. He didn't want to appear inexperienced and make a fool of himself in front of the British. Hog's current status was not what it used to be. With Anduin's influence growing daily, Hog's identity was no secret in the UK, especially among senior officials of the Ministry of Magic. This emboldened him to speak openly. Seeing no unusual reactions from those around him, Hog continued, "Since this operation will involve a lot of international secrets for safety reasons and to protect the information from the German side from leaking out, we now need everyone to sign a confidentiality contract." With a wave of his hand, parchment and quills appeared in front of everyone. Andre quickly scanned the contents of the magic contract and found that it only restricted those who signed it from spreading information about the German Ministry of Magic and the Silver Spear. This gesture warmed Andre's heart. It was clear that this measure was to protect the German magical community. After all, they might learn about some scandals in the Ministry of Magic, and if the British aurors spread it around, it would be humiliating. When Andre's subordinates looked to him for guidance, he immediately signaled his approval. However, Anduin's original intention was not entirely altruistic. He was concerned about potential spies among the people Andre brought, who might leak secrets. Regardless of their individual thoughts, everyone signed the contract willingly, as the binding clauses were not harsh, just a prohibition on leaking information. After completing the contract, Hog began to outline the operation's objectives. First, I will inform you of the combat objectives of Operation Concentric Circles. There are 3 established targets this time, all of which are magical animal breeding bases under the Silver Spear organization. Our goal is to destroy all 3 bases, capture the magical animals inside, and apprehend all wizards present. You've already identified the number of their bases. That's impressively efficient, Andre remarked. Amelia looked at Anduin with some surprise. She had only just learned about these things herself. It's just a matter of luck, but the internal situation of the 2 bases is still unclear, so we can only use the first target as a reference, Anduin replied modestly, then signaled Hog to continue. Seeing this, Hog nodded slightly and opened the manual in front of him. Now, I will first inform you of the information we have learned so far. After finishing speaking, Hog raised his finger, and the sand table in front of everyone slowly lit up, revealing an abbreviated model of Park Number 1. What you are seeing now is the model of Park Number 1. This is the base we know the most about, and it is so the first target of Operation Concentric Circle. The park is located in the east of Cologne, West Germany. It covers an area of about 300 acres. The entire base is arranged in a circle. There are 64 human buildings, 240 magical animal sheds, and 22 personnel dormitories. Hog was giving a detailed report informing everyone of the relevant information. As he continued to narrate, the areas he touched on the sand table would be highlighted. Although everyone present had not been to the park in person, they could easily understand its layout. At this time, everyone looked at the sand table in the center with a dumbfounded expression. Some were overwhelmed by the scale of the park, some were surprised by the amazing sand table, and some were amazed that Anduin not only found the location of the 3 bases, but also clarified the internal situation. The most shocked was Andre. He was a mix of all 3 reactions. After Hog activated the sand table, Andre's mouth never closed. "Hey, Gorilla, don't always look like you've never seen the world. Do you know what professionalism is? This is professionalism." Moody, who was listening to the report, joked when he saw Andre's stunned expression. In fact, it was the first time Moody and the others had seen Anduin take out something like this, but they had a lot of contact with Anduin, so they were already mentally prepared for his surprises. Compared to Moody and the others, Andre seemed like a countryman who had never seen the world. "Humph, does interrupting other people's reports make you look polite? You're a cripple." Andre, somewhat annoyed, gave Moody a hard look. Hog, who was hosting the meeting, also glanced at Moody. "Please don't interrupt, Captain Moody. We haven't even started the main topic yet." Realizing he had been reprimanded, Moody rolled his eyes and tightly shut his mouth. This little episode made everyone around snicker. "Everyone, please be quiet," Hogg commanded with authority. "Next, I will inform you about the situation of the people and magical animals in the park." After hearing Hogg's warning, everyone immediately fell silent, as if they were students in front of a strict teacher. After detailed screening, we have confirmed that among the 240 magical animal sheds or pens in the entire park, 153 house magical animals. Each unit has between 1 to 8 magical animals, with a total number ranging from 300 to 350. Among the more dangerous magical animals, we have learned that there are at least 8 fire dragons, 2 chimeras, 1 griffin, and 4 poisonous leopards. As Hogg continued to report on these magical animals, the group of wizards who had just recovered their composure showed surprised expressions again, especially Hagrid and Kettleburn, who looked indignant. So many creatures were imprisoned in such a small space. It was appalling. Hogg did not stop his report. As for the staffing in Park Number 1, we can confirm that there are currently 117 people in this base, including 96 wizards and 36 muggles. There are 35 people responsible for base defense, 25 for daily maintenance, 21 medical wizards, and a number of wizards as mobile manpower, Hogg reported. "What? There are more than 200 people here?" someone exclaimed. "Is there any mistake? How come there are muggles in this park?" another voice questioned. "Are you kidding? Only us to deal with them? And we want to capture them all?" a third person added incredulously. "Are you sure this place is a breeding park, not a wizard village?" someone else asked skeptically. "These more than 200 people are all enemies? All criminals? No matter how big a German prison is, it can't hold so many people," another voice chimed in. "Did you just say that there are 2 similar parks, so there are 500 or 600 people in total? Are they really criminals?" someone asked, their voice tinged with disbelief. Originally, when Hogg reported the information about the magical beasts, everyone was just surprised. But now, learning that there were so many people at the base, everyone was on edge. Even the Aurors who had come to support from the UK raised doubts, with some even questioning the legitimacy of the operation. "Who knows if what Anduin and the others said about the other party being a silver spear is true," one Auror muttered. "If we were facing a dozen or so people, it could be considered fighting crime. But now we have to fight against hundreds of people. What if we end up being labeled as criminals after the operation? Can a few dozen of us really deal with so many wizards?" another Auror asked, voicing the concern that was on everyone's mind. Even Amelia and Andre questioned Anduin, especially Anduin, who had heard that a wizard army was being trained here. When he first learned that they were going to deal with more than 200 people, he didn't raise any objections. But according to the report, many of them were ordinary wizards in charge of daily services, and there were nearly 100 muggles. Was it really okay for them to raid such a base? What if these people turned around and sued them? After all, there were so many people, and they couldn't just kill everyone to silence them. "Silence!" Anduin commanded, standing up to address the group. "I know everyone is wondering why there are so many people in this park and their identities." Everyone nodded in agreement. This was not a joke. As official Aurors, they needed a legitimate reason to attack hundreds of people. Otherwise, what would be the difference between them and criminals? Conflicts of this scale could even be called wars. End of this chapter. Chapter 507, Evidence. Anduin found the capital for everyone's performance, and he smiled calmly. "Don't worry, I will give you a detailed and reasonable explanation and provide enough evidence." Of course, many of them involve state secrets, which is why I asked everyone to sign a magic contract in advance. After hearing Anduin's reply, everyone finally regained their composure and turned their questioning eyes to him. As you can see, there are indeed more than 200 people in Park Number 5. After many investigations, I can confirm that a large part of them are civilian wizards. Most of the muggles and squibs are the spouses or relatives of these wizards. Anduin didn't hide much from the people in front of him and directly shared this astonishing news. "Since these people are civilian wizards, why do we attack them?" One of Anduin's subordinates looked at him, puzzled. He had started as an Auror, and his duty was to protect these civilian wizards. Now, dealing with them in turn was truly baffling for him. Hearing the wizard's question, other Aurors around nodded in agreement. Even the British Aurors who were familiar with Anduin showed puzzled expressions. Although most of them are civilian wizards, this park does belong to the Silver Spear. Please take a look, Anduin said, stretching out his finger. The curtain at the front of the conference table lit up, and like a slideshow projected by a projector, the heads of dozens of wizards were instantly displayed. From the shooting angle, it was clear that most of the photos were candid shots, either side views or top views. The people you are looking at are the 36 patrol officers in the base, and Gale, the park management secretary. It has been confirmed that they, like the managers inside the park, are collaborators of the Silver Spear. You should understand the significance of this, Anduin said seriously. Everyone around nodded after hearing Anduin's words, especially the German Aurors. They had been dealing with the Silver Spear for a long time and were no strangers to these collaborators. So our main target is actually these people? Then let's arrest these people and dismiss the other ordinary wizards. Is it necessary to arrest everyone? Another Auror from the German Ministry of Magic asked. Your question is very good, but the situation involved is more complicated. Anduin turned his head to look at Andre. Director Andre, everyone has signed a non-disclosure agreement. Can I announce the secret? So far, I have only revealed it to you. Have you got conclusive evidence? Andre asked with a serious face, knowing what Anduin was referring to. Anduin nodded. Not only do I have it, but I have already collected it. I will announce it to everyone later if necessary. Well, since we have already sat here, there is no way out, Andre sighed with some melancholy. After seeing this conversation between Anduin and Andre, everyone showed curious expressions. What kind of charades were these two playing? Anduin didn't keep everyone waiting for too long. He turned around and continued. What I'm going to say next involves absolute confidentiality. Although everyone has signed a magic contract, I still want to ask that everyone keep their mouths shut. Seeing Anduin's serious expression, everyone couldn't help but get serious and even sat up straight involuntarily. In order to make it easier for everyone to accept, let me speak directly with evidence. Anduin raised his finger again, and the content on the curtain in front of him changed. Several photos appeared again. This time, the protagonist of the photos was only one person, with some close-ups of a single head and some distant views. Outside the park, some people were stationed, while others were inside. This is Claremont, the boss of the magic supplies? One of the German Aurors exclaimed upon recognizing the person in the pictures. Yes, this Claremont is the main collaborator of the Silver Spear and the actual manager of Parkno, Anduin confirmed without hesitation. But we already knew about his connection with the Silver Spear. Claremont also manages a black market in Berlin. It doesn't seem strange that he is the person in charge of this base, right? Another Auror questioned, looking puzzled. He didn't understand how this related to the secret Anduin had mentioned earlier. Don't worry, Anduin replied with a slight smile. Showing these pictures is just a premise, a way to prove that his status in the Silver Spear is significant. By chance, I used my identity to get in touch with Claremont, and I installed a small device on him. This allowed me to see and hear everything he did, Anduin explained. He then waved his hand, and the image on the curtain changed to a video. This is the video I recorded when Claremont was in contact with the Silver Spear. Please watch it quietly, Anduin said, before sitting down. The people around him sensed that this video might contain the big secret Anduin and Andre had hinted at, so they watched the screen attentively. The video showed Claremont meeting with Golden Snidget in a dark room on the black market. After a brief greeting, Claremont began reporting his meeting with Anduin and commenting on him. The viewers were amazed by the technology that could record and play back images. They also learned about Anduin through Claremont's conversation. They were surprised by Anduin's audacity to blackmail Claremont during their first meeting, and the amount of money discussed left them speechless. When they heard that the Silver Spear had instructed Claremont to use the West German Endeavor Society to cause trouble, their expressions turned grim. They began to wonder why the name Silver Spear sounded so familiar, as if they had heard it before. Finally, when Claremont asked for instructions and revealed that Anduin wanted to visit the Silver Spear, seeking the other party's opinion, the viewers felt a chill. Some had vaguely guessed the true identity of the Silver Spear, but still found it hard to believe, their eyes widening in disbelief. Andre, who had also watched the full video, had a dark and terrifying expression. He recognized the identity of the Silver Spear from the first sentence and realized the other party's involvement in instigating internal strife among civil groups in Germany. "This," a German Auror stammered after the video ended, his eyes darting between Andre and Anduin. "The Silver Spear that appeared here, could it be the one Claremont mentioned you were going to visit?" "That's right," Anduin said decisively. "During the period after these two met, I only saw two people, Director Andre next to me, and the one you saw in the video, the Minister for Magic, Dario Pete." Anduin's words were like a huge boulder thrown into a calm lake, causing an immediate uproar. Even Newt and Amelia, who hadn't known the information in advance, looked shocked. The German Aurors were even more excited. "What? It's impossible," exclaimed a belated Auror. "It turned out to be him. I thought the voice sounded so familiar." This was the inner voice of an Auror after confirming his suspicions. Why? Why did Minister Pete do this? Why did he collude with Silver Spear and instigate civil unrest? This was the anguished roar of a jealous and emotional Auror. This doesn't necessarily mean that Minister Pete is the man with the Silver Spear. The man in the image is wearing a mask, and the voice could have been altered. This was the skeptical question of an unbelieving Auror. "Silence!" Anduin commanded loudly, seeing the chaos at the scene. "This is only part of the evidence." His magical voice slightly shocked everyone, causing them to slowly close their mouths. However, the doubts and shock in their eyes did not fade away as they looked at Anduin. "During my investigation of Park Number 4, I found numerous XXX-level alchemy devices from Silver Flash Trading Company at this base. These devices are prohibited from being sold to ordinary wizards. You must contact the British Ministry of Magic directly for negotiations. The presence of so many devices at the Silver Spear's location speaks for itself." After finishing, Anduin turned to look at Amelia beside him. "Director Amelia, I asked you to check the export records of XXX-level equipment before coming here. How much XXX-level equipment has Germany imported to the UK? How many buyers are there, and what are the corresponding quantities?" "So that's why you asked me for this data," Amelia said, looking at Anduin with sudden realization. She then spoke calmly. "Currently, there are only 3 German entities importing to us: German Gringotts, the D branch of Obscure Books, and the German Ministry of Magic." End of this chapter. Chapter 508, Andre, the Master of Conjecture. After a brief pause, Amelia continued. "Among them, the first 2 only ordered a small amount of anti-theft detectors from us. The bulk of the transaction is still dominated by the German Ministry of Magic. The German Ministry of Magic purchased more than 50 sets of anti-theft monitors from us, and nearly 20 sets of tactical vests. It looks like there are only about 20 pieces. Strictly speaking, the German Ministry of Magic is the official organization with the largest procurement efforts among European countries. The total purchase amount exceeds 10,000 galleons. To express our gratitude, we even gave them a Type 3 humanoid target as a gift." After listening to Amelia's explanation, Anduin looked at the German Aurors with a smile. "Did you hear that? Since the German Ministry of Magic has purchased so much tactical equipment, you, as the most important armed forces in the ministry, Lily, have you received these devices?" Hearing Anduin's inquiry, the dozen or so Aurors present couldn't help but look at each other, their faces growing increasingly grim. "Let me tell you." Andre raised his head with a complicated expression. "So far, the Law Enforcement Department has received a total of 10 pairs of magic handcuffs and tracking glasses, 2 sets of tactical vests, and as for the anti-theft monitor, we don't even know what it is." Speaking of this, Andre couldn't help but smile wryly. "When I received the equipment, I thought that Pete and we were just having political disagreements. I also thought that he was sympathetic to the hard work of the Law Enforcement Department, so he specially equipped us with new gear. Who would have thought that he was just sending off beggars? That's 10,000 galleons, that bastard who used the ministry's funds to arm the Silver Spear. The more Andre spoke, the angrier he became. He couldn't help but punch the conference table so hard that it deformed. This old guy is strong enough. Anduin looked at his long log table with some distress, but quickly adjusted his mood and said, "It's not too late to find out. If he really splits Germany in two, then it will be too late for anything." That's right. Andre's eyes suddenly became firm and full of murderous intent. I'll just say why that bastard Pete insisted on promoting the secession bill. I used to think that he was bewitched or threatened by the Silver Spear. Who would have thought that this bastard would be a Silver Spear himself? The identity of the other party is not just an ordinary Silver Spear, Anduin sneered, scanning the surrounding people. After my investigation during this period, Pete's identity is very likely to be a Silver Spear named Golden Snidget, who is currently the leader of the Silver Spear Club. What? When Anduin dropped this bombshell, the people around showed expressions of surprise. Even Amelia and Newt looked at Anduin in shock. Are you sure, Anduin? He is the leader of the Silver Spear? Amelia couldn't help but widen her eyes. The Merlin Sirs, represented by Amelia, had tasked Anduin with finding out the club leader. They knew this request was a bit difficult, so, as long as Anduin could hit the Silver Spear hard and destroy the club's revival sanctuary, they would already be very satisfied with the ambition of the Apprentice Association. But it turned out that Anduin had actually found out the identity of the other party. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm 80% certain. Even if he's not the leader, Pete is at least a top executive of the club, Anduin said with a firm tone, then turned to look at the crowd. And according to the information I have gathered, in addition to Pete, the directors of the Magical Accidents and Disasters Department and the Magical Beasts Management Department are also involved, requested. Newt Scamander, who had been quietly observing the conversation, nodded and stepped forward. Yes, everything is ready. We have enough supplies to ensure the well-being of all the captured individuals. They will be treated humanely and given the opportunity to testify against the Silver Spear. The German aurors exchanged glances, their initial shock slowly giving way to determination. The gravity of the situation was clear, and they understood the importance of their mission. Anduin continued, Our primary goal is to dismantle the Silver Spear's operations and cut off their resources. By doing so, we not only weaken their influence, but also send a strong message that their actions will not be tolerated. We must act swiftly and decisively. Andre, still visibly agitated, added, We need to ensure that the captured individuals are safe and secure. They are potential witnesses who can provide valuable information about the Silver Spear's activities. We must protect them at all costs. One of the aurors, a woman with a determined expression, spoke up, What about the magical creatures in the breeding parks? We can't just leave them behind. Newt smiled reassuringly. I've already made arrangements for that. My team and I will ensure that all magical creatures are safely relocated to appropriate habitats. They will be well taken care of. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the information. The enormity of the task ahead was daunting, but the resolve in the room was palpable. Anduin took a deep breath and addressed the group. We have a chance to make a real difference here. The Silver Spear's plans are dangerous, not just for Germany, but for the entire wizarding world. We must stand together and put an end to their schemes. The German aurors nodded in agreement, their determination solidified. They were ready to take on the challenge and protect their world from the looming threat. As the meeting concluded, Anduin and Newt exchanged a knowing glance. The battle ahead would be difficult, but they had the strength and unity to face it head-on. The fate of the wizarding world depended on their success, and they were prepared to give it their all. Newt nodded slightly at the question. I have gathered enough food, drinking water, and living supplies for 600 people from the UK for a month. Additionally, I have prepared food, medicine, hypnotic potions, and equipment for magical animals, as you requested. Good, Anduin replied. There should be some supplies in those parks. As for the beds and other items prepared for the wizards, they are also ready. Regarding the location, I have recently secured a very secret underground warehouse. With a few modifications, it will be sufficient to accommodate everyone. Everyone felt relieved upon hearing this. Anduin had clearly thought of everything, and they were impressed by his meticulous planning. This young man had considered every detail. "But we can't keep these people forever, right?" Amelia asked. "They are commoner wizards, and there are many muggles among them. Have you thought through the next steps?" "Don't worry," Anduin reassured her with a slight smile. "I have already prepared for that. However, that will be the second part of the action plan, and I can't reveal it just yet. Rest assured, these wizards are our treasures, and we will ensure they won't be harmed in any way." After hearing Anduin's guarantee, Amelia, Newt, and the others finally felt at ease. They had been under a lot of pressure, knowing they had to protect so many civilians, especially since they were not from their own country. Any casualties would lead to significant trouble. "All right, since everyone is now confident about this operation, let's continue with the combat meeting," Anduin said. "I have just reported the information I have collected. The next step is the actual execution. We must ensure this operation is a complete success. Otherwise, all subsequent plans will be futile." With that, Anduin turned to Hogg. "Go ahead, let's move on to the tactical explanation stage." End of this chapter. Chapter 509, Tactical Actions. "Your Excellency," Hogg began, seeing that everyone had made up their minds under Anduin's persuasion. He resumed his explanation. "Before we delve into the tactics, it's crucial for everyone to understand the work and rest schedules, as well as the defense methods, at the breeding base. Taking Park Number 7 as an example, their day starts at 7 a.m. Breakfast is served between 7 and 8 a.m. Lunch from 12 to 1 p.m., followed by an hour-long break. Work resumes from 2 p.m. until evening, with dinner at 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., personnel have free time, during which they can use the park's entertainment facilities. A curfew is imposed at 9 p.m., and all personnel must return to their dormitories. According to our investigation, they typically turn off their lights and rest before 10 p.m. Our raids will generally occur after this time," Hogg explained, flipping through the report in his hand. "I see. Attacking while they are resting can indeed reduce a lot of resistance." Andre nodded in admiration. He then noticed that the meeting time seemed to have passed 10 p.m. Could they be planning to strike tonight? Before Andre could voice his question, Hogg continued. "However, there are some personnel with special schedules in the breeding park, specifically the 36 patrols and the 5 medical wizards on night duty. The 5 wizards on the night shift usually stay in the large shed in the park, taking care of sick magical animals. They rarely go out. As for the patrol teams, they are divided into 2 shifts. One group of 16 people patrols from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. This group includes 10 people outside the park, each equipped with a hunting dog, and 6 people inside, patrolling in 5 groups. During the day, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., another shift of 20 people takes over, with 10 outside the park and 10 inside. The configuration is similar to the night shift. It is important to note that the patrol personnel work continuously, even eating on the spot. The peripheral patrol personnel are equipped with tactical vests, a mix of spells, warning spells, and human presence spells. Additionally, the breeding bases have set up magical barriers with extremely strong protection capabilities on the periphery. It is impossible to break through these barriers using ordinary means. Even if they are destroyed by force, the people inside will be alerted. After hearing Hogg's report, everyone around was apprehensive. If they rushed straight into such a tight defense, they might suffer significant losses. Since you know these protective measures so well, you must have made all the necessary preparations, Andre observed, noting Anduin's meticulous nature. That's right, Anduin nodded slightly. I have prepared equipment that can bypass these devices. For Park Number 7, we will break through from the inside. Break through from the inside? Have you found a way to enter without alerting the personnel? Andre asked, slightly surprised. Yes, we managed to send a subordinate to infiltrate the park when we first discovered it. Thanks to her, we have gathered extensive internal information. We also discovered a passage that leads directly from the outside to the inside, Anduin explained, referring to Shaltir. She played a vital role in this operation against the breeding park. Everyone, including Andre, suddenly realized how Anduin had obtained so much detailed information about the park's internal structure. And because of this, Anduin continued, we can execute our plan with precision and minimal resistance. I have successfully cracked the magic shield surrounding the park, but to be safe, we still need to break through directly from inside Park Num. Anduin took over the briefing from Hog. For this operation, we will enter the core hub in the center of the park around 9 p.m. Once my internal contact confirms that all the lights in the residential area are off, we will proceed. The first task is to neutralize the 10 internal patrol officers, then capture the staff quarters, including Claremont and others. Anduin scanned the room, making eye contact with everyone present. There are 46 of us here, including Hog, Hagrid, and Professor Kettleburn. Due to their distinctive appearances, they will not participate in the arrests. For the remaining 43, I will divide you into 22 pairs. When the operation begins, we will deploy 7 highly mobile teams first. Using the disillusionment charm, they will infiltrate and quickly subdue the 5 patrol teams and the 5 night shift medical wizards. Afterward, they will regroup in the residential area and simultaneously attack the 5 staff dormitories. Anduin paused as Andre raised a concern. I understand neutralizing the patrols first, but isn't it risky to attack all the residential areas at once instead of one by one? There are over 200 people in 22 dormitories, meaning at least 8 to 10 people per dormitory. Even if they are asleep, is it wise for just 2 wizards to handle each dormitory alone? The surrounding Aurors nodded in agreement. They were confident in their abilities, but hesitant about facing so many people at once. If something went wrong, it would be difficult to manage the situation. Anduin smiled reassuringly. I appreciate your concern, but I've prepared for this. He walked to the side of the meeting room. Continuing, when I said 2 wizards per dormitory, I didn't mean a reckless attack. We will use specific tactics. These tactics include silent door breaking, standardized movement lines, quick maneuvering, control, and emergency plans. I've also prepared the necessary equipment for everyone. These tactics are straightforward, and with a bit of practice, everyone can master them. The room fell silent as the Aurors tried to process Anduin's words. Andre voiced the collective confusion. We don't know any tactical moves, and what kind of equipment are you talking about? Don't worry, I've prepared everything, Anduin assured them. What I mean is this. He waved his hand, and the wall on one side of the conference room began to shift, revealing a small 3-story building in the open space beyond. The attentive Aurors noticed it was an exact replica of the wizard's dormitory from the sand table model. Andre looked at Anduin in disbelief. Is this? Yes, Anduin confirmed with a smile. This building is a 1-to-1 replica of the wizard's dormitory, including the internal layout. He stepped outside and gestured for everyone to follow. Please move to the front of the building, and I will provide a detailed explanation. The group exchanged glances before getting up and following Anduin to the front of the replica dormitory. Forming a half-circle in the shape of a fan, the group gathered around Anduin, who stood in front of the door on the first floor of the house. He addressed them loudly. We have discovered that the wizard dormitory system in the park is very uniform, including the internal layout. Each dormitory has a total of 8 rooms, with 4 on the second floor and 4 on the third floor. When breaking the door, I have prepared enough talismans for everyone. After activating this type of talisman, you can break through without alarming anyone. This is the first tactical action, silent breaking. Anduin then took out a metal amulet, activated it, and placed it on the door. He proceeded to cast an unlocking spell on the door. Throughout this process, the people around did not hear any noise. At the same time, when breaking the door, one person is responsible for breaking it, and another for security. After the door is breached, the threat needs to be neutralized according to the standard procedure, as we cannot be sure if anyone is still moving around after lights out. This is the second tactical action, standardized movement line. As soon as you see someone in your field of vision, you must use a stun spell to launch an attack immediately. But remember, every time an attack is launched, a silent talisman must be activated to ensure that no one else is alerted. After explaining, Anduin walked in front of everyone, holding the talisman in one hand and his wand in the other, maintaining a vigilant posture. He moved quickly, first to the left and then to the right, ensuring his wand was aligned in a straight line, missing no corners. His movements were precise and swift, which impressed everyone around him. Suddenly, a human-shaped cardboard figure popped up in the lobby on the first floor, crudely drawn to resemble a person in pajamas. The moment the cardboard appeared, Anduin activated the silent talisman with one hand and quickly shot a stun spell from his wand with the other, instantly knocking the cardboard into the air. Remarkably, there was no sound throughout the entire process. Even when the cardboard hit the wall, it remained silent. End of this chapter. Chapter 510, Exercise, Seeking Monthly Ticket Recommendation. Everyone around witnessed the scene, and their mouths involuntarily formed an O shape. Everyone, please come into the room. I will explain the key points to consider when troubleshooting on each floor. As we pass through each area, make sure to observe the corners, Anduin instructed, waving his hand to invite everyone in. He then began a targeted explanation of each area on the first floor. While he was explaining, a wizard raised his hand and asked, "What do you mean by cutting corner observation?" After the previous meeting and the demonstration, the wizard's attitude towards Anduin had changed drastically, so he asked with great respect. The so-called cutting angle observation is a conventional tactical action used in indoor or street fighting. It involves using your wand in a vigilant posture, aiming, and slowly changing the angle as you move. This ensures the safety of the space in the room, window, corridor, and other fields of vision, Anduin explained patiently. During this operation, since a large number of rooms are involved, everyone must be proficient in this tactical action. When one person is troubleshooting, another wizard must be responsible for vigilance behind him and hold the silent talisman at all times, ready to activate it. This ensures an immediate response to any threat and prevents another wizard from forgetting to activate the amulet when casting a spell, Anduin continued. Conventional tactics? The German aurors looked at the British aurors with some confusion, and the British wizards were equally puzzled, as they had never heard of such tactics. Since you prepared this silent talisman, why don't you use more powerful props to mute the entire building from the start? That way, we wouldn't have to activate it every time we encounter an enemy, Moody asked, still puzzled. Before Anduin could answer, another wizard gave Moody a stern look. If the whole building is muted, won't wizards who are still awake at night notice the sudden silence and become suspicious? Exactly, Anduin nodded in agreement. I specifically adjusted the output power of the silent talisman so that its range of influence is limited to the current room. It can eliminate minor vibrations, so as long as there is no structural damage to the house, it will suppress the noise of indoor spells. Everyone nodded in understanding. If the amulet is activated in a single room, as long as the wall isn't smashed, it will remain undetected. When launching an attack on a wizard's dormitory, we must ensure clear objectives and high operational efficiency. We must adhere to the principle of quick maneuvering during the operation, Anduin emphasized. This means that once we confirm there is no one outside the room, we must reach the door of each guest room as quickly as possible. Anduin then demonstrated again, this time accelerating his movements and ensuring efficiency while cutting corners to observe. When he moved to a corridor on the second floor, there were 4 guest rooms on both sides. He stood still and said, "Before and after reaching the door of the room, we need to control the partition wall. It's time to use another prop I prepared for everyone." Anduin took out a thin metal card from his pocket and said, "This is a hypnosis charm, as long as it is. When activated, it can release enough hypnotic gas to cover a room in 2 seconds, including wizards. Humans will fall asleep after inhaling this gas for just 3 seconds. When everyone moves outside the door, all they need to do is activate it and then slide it through the crack of the door. For ease of use, I specially flattened it. The overall thickness is similar to that of a card, Anduin explained. After inserting the cards into the 4 guest rooms, you can ignore this floor and proceed directly to the 3rd floor, repeating the same process. Is it really that simple? Andre, standing next to him, took the metal card from Anduin's hand curiously. Aside from putting people to sleep, does this hypnotic talisman have any side effects? Anduin smiled slightly. Don't worry. This talisman is just a small prop enhanced with the untraceable stretching curse. It contains a concentrated vaporized sleep potion. The only effect, aside from causing unconsciousness for 12 hours, is that it won't cause any other harm to the body. He glanced around at the group. If anyone is interested, I can demonstrate it live. I just need a volunteer to act as a guinea pig. Of course, I will administer the antidote immediately afterward. A group of wizards exchanged glances, and eventually, a German auror and a British auror stepped forward, curious about the actual combat effectiveness of the equipment. All right, please enter this room and lie on the bed as if you were resting, Anduin said, opening the door and gesturing for them to enter. The 2 aurors looked at each other before walking into the room. There were 2 wooden beds inside, and they lay down, pretending to rest, but keeping their eyes wide open to witness the talisman's effect. Anduin didn't mind their vigilance. He closed the door and turned to the rest of the group. Okay, now I will activate the amulet. As soon as he finished speaking, Anduin injected a bit of magic into the card in his hand. Then it was stuffed into the crack of the door within 2 seconds. With a swift motion, Anduin bent down and quickly pushed the card into the door, counting down in front of everyone. 3, 2, 1, the control is over. He opened the door again, and a strong fragrance wafted out. Anduin casually waved his wand, sweeping the air out of the room. The 2 aurors inside had already fallen into a deep sleep. The effect of this talisman is so immediate. Everyone widened their eyes in amazement. They had just seen the 2 aurors looking energetic moments ago. Andre walked into the room, still in disbelief, and pushed the sleeping German auror a few times, finding that he had completely passed out. Anduin smiled slightly. The hypnotic gas he used in the talisman was highly concentrated. He had spent a considerable amount of galleons to brew these potions, ensuring their effectiveness. The most challenging part was not vaporizing the potion or creating the card-like props, but preventing the concentrated gas from leaking during the process of infusing it into the alchemy card. This was Anduin's unique skill, for which he had even built a special device. Although the principle of the hypnosis talisman was simple, it couldn't be replicated by others. Don't worry, just use some antidote to revive them, Anduin said, stopping Andre from pouring water on the auror's face. He took out a medicine bottle from his pocket, used a dropper to administer a few drops into their mouths, and the 2 aurors slowly regained consciousness. We fell asleep? One of the aurors asked groggily as he woke up. Anduin shook his head, then slowly realized what had just transpired. That's right, exactly 3 seconds after I cast the Gnosis amulet, you fell into a deep sleep. I even shook you for a long time, without any reaction, he explained to the 2 aurors. The aurors exchanged glances and then shook their heads in unison. Strange, we didn't even realize we had fallen asleep, one of them remarked. Seeing the powerful effect of the hypnotic talisman, the surrounding wizards began to whisper among themselves. Amelia couldn't help but express her admiration. It's amazing. With this kind of equipment, dealing with wizards will be much easier. Indeed, Anduin agreed. I've tested it before. From breaking down the door, clearing obstacles, and releasing amulets to all guest rooms, following the standard procedure, it only takes 5 minutes to control a dormitory. What? 5 minutes? Does that mean anyone can do it? The people around were astonished and began to praise Anduin. As I mentioned, this is a set of simple tactical moves I developed. However, everyone must be proficient in the operation process. The most crucial aspect is handling emergencies, especially considering that some people might still be in their rooms after lights out, Anduin explained. So, from now on, everyone present will conduct actual combat drills in this simulated dormitory until everyone is familiar with these tactics, he continued, looking around the room. Actual practice? Andre suddenly understood. So that's why today's assembly isn't for immediate action, but for actual combat preparation before the operation. Exactly. Anduin confirmed with a nod. I'll divide you into groups, and you'll conduct exercises in those groups. Everyone will have to pass a clearance test for the simulated combat. Hog will be responsible for this. If your operation process isn't up to standard, you'll have to practice here until you are proficient. The group felt a mix of surprise and unease. The idea that a seemingly simple tactic required a clearance test, and that Hog would be the examiner, left them feeling a bit odd. End of this chapter. Chapter 511, The Blind Snake. Don't bother everyone, Anduin said sternly, noticing the group's lack of focus. I don't want to repeat the importance of this operation. It must be foolproof. Don't think this tactical move is simple. It requires practice to fully grasp it. During the drill, I will also activate some traps in the house to simulate emergencies. This will help you become more familiar with the structure of the house and remain calm when dealing with unexpected situations. Everyone understood the gravity of Anduin's words. They were up against a large criminal organization that controlled half of the Ministry of Magic's silver spear. Failure could impact the future of the entire German wizarding world. Under Andrei's initiative, everyone agreed with Anduin's decision. Seeing their agreement, Anduin nodded slightly and chuckled. I've invested a lot in this drill. All the equipment you'll use is genuine, so you can get familiar with it. Besides the Amulet of Silence and Amulet of Hypnosis, I've prepared other items for each of you. Anduin led everyone out of the house and back to the conference room. He then took out several items and placed them on the conference table for everyone to see. Each of you will receive a set of tactical vests and tactical leather boots before the action. I've assembled 10 silence talismans and hypnosis talismans on the front hanger of each tactical vest. Additionally, there are necessary supplies like food, drinking water, and nourishing potions, Anduin explained, pointing to the full-body equipment in the middle. The group smiled, appreciating Anduin's thorough preparation. Many of them had heard of tactical vests, but had never seen one. The German aurors silently cursed Minister Pete, who not only wanted to split Germany, but also embezzled Ministry of Magic funds to arm criminals, leaving the Department of Law Enforcement with only 2 sets of tactical vests. In addition to the tactical vest, I've prepared a new generation of tracking glasses for everyone. These glasses have a night vision function, making it easier to operate in dark environments. And these messaging earphones allow short-distance conversations. With them, you can have real-time conversations within a 2-kilometer range, similar to a Muggle walkie-talkie. These are premium goods that even I can't easily buy, Anduin said, showing the other 2 props. He had invested heavily in this operation to ensure its success. Everyone's eyes lit up at the sight of these new and useful items. Wait a minute, Anduin. What's this among the things you showed? Moody asked, uninterested in the equipment he had seen before, but drawn to 2 other props on the table. Following Moody's gaze, the group's expressions turned puzzled and even a bit disgusted. The items in question were a pure white mask with no facial features and a snow-white wizard coat with a hood. Isn't this the attire of those Silver Spear members? Why is it here? A brash German auror blurted out. The local wizards were all too familiar with the Silver Spear's attire. You're not mistaken, Anduin said with a leisurely smile, nodding. What you see is the standard equipment of the Silver Spear. This time, we all have to put on such a suit for action. Huh? Why are we wearing Silver Spear costumes? One of the aurors questioned, looking puzzled. That's right, we are aurors. This time we are going to perform official duties. Why should we wear the costumes of criminals? Another added, clearly uncomfortable with the idea. They themselves are the subordinate organization of the Silver Spear. If we wear these clothes, won't we be recognized immediately? A third auror chimed in, echoing the concerns of the group. Everyone around questioned each other, obviously resistant to the idea of disguising themselves as Silver Spears. Andre, Amelia, Moody, Newt, and others standing in front of them were deep in thought. Let's pretend to be Silver Spears, don't you mean? Andre seemed to have figured out what Anduin was thinking, kneeing, and looked at him with bright eyes. It seems that you are also aware of it. Anduin nodded, then addressed the group. Everyone knows that there are actually a large number of civilian wizards who don't know the truth in those breeding bases. If we directly capture them as aurors, it could easily cause misunderstandings. So, Amelia seemed to have realized the plan and looked at Anduin with burning eyes. So we have to disguise ourselves as silver spears and blame the attack on them. This way, even after the civilian wizards are released, they will still hate the organization of the silver spears. Anduin explained with a smile. It turned out to be like this. No wonder you have no worries about capturing so many civilian wizards at once. You have already thought about the way out. As long as we capture these wizards in the name of the Silver Spear, they will not blame the Ministry of Magic, Moody said with a sinister smile. He had always advocated for using any means necessary against criminals, so he had no qualms about using dirty tricks against the Silver Spear. But is it really appropriate to do this? You must know that there are many collaborators with the Silver Spear among those wizards. They must know that we are not Silver Spears. Andre voiced his concerns, though he wasn't entirely opposed to the plan. Whoever said they can be sure we are not from the Silver Spear. As long as we act convincingly, we might deceive them. Most collaborators have never personally interacted with the Silver Spear. The key point is to convince the managers in the park. If you can convince them, what do you think they will do? Anduin sneered. You mean by disguising as Silver Spears and then tricking managers like Claremont into defecting? Andre seemed to understand Anduin's thoughts. To deal with these guys, we can use more than just deception. Sometimes threats or lures may be more effective. Claremont and others have a very high reputation in the park. As long as he takes the lead, it doesn't matter if it's the Silver Spear or not. Anduin's voice was light and ethereal, but the coldness in it made people shudder. Then with their power, we can gradually reverse the direction of public opinion in Germany, and even let them testify, directly exposing Pete's true colors or revealing all the dirty things those civil organizations have done. Andre realized the benefits of the plan, seeing its potential. However, Andre hesitated, thinking of something. So many wizards have been captured by us. What reason should we use to release them later? Letting them disperse at will after they are released could put them in danger. You must know that the Silver Spear is a criminal group. We can't hope they have a limit. It's actually quite simple, Anduin said, looking at Andre with a teasing smile. What do you think of headlines like, "The brave Chief Andre leads the Auror army to rescue innocent citizens from the evil Silver Spear"? After this, your prestige will skyrocket, and you may even replace Pete as the Minister of Magic. As soon as Anduin said this, everyone's eyes lit up. They realized that if things could really unfold this way, it would be a significant victory for them. The plan seemed to be unfolding as smoothly as Anduin had imagined. They first posed as members of the Silver Spear to hijack the civilian wizards. Then, Andre would lead the Aurors in a staged heroic rescue. This way, Andre would be seen as the savior, and the prestige of the Department of Law Enforcement would skyrocket within the Ministry of Magic. The Aurors could then justify protecting the civilians under the pretext of fearing the Silver Spear's revenge, ensuring their safety. So this is your ultimate goal? Amelia asked, looking at Anduin in shock. She hadn't expected that the young man, who had been in Germany for just over 10 days, would uncover so many details about the Silver Spear and devise such a long-term strategy to dismantle them. If successful, the Silver Spear's reputation in Germany would be utterly destroyed. Moreover, if they could link the Silver Spear to Pete, they might even be able to unseat him from his position as minister. This is actually the second phase of the battle plan, codenamed Blind Snake. We'll discuss the specific details of the operation later, Anduin replied with a smile. But everyone, don't get too optimistic. We haven't completed even the first step yet. In fact, Anduin had a third-stage battle plan, but he kept that to himself for now. Then what are we waiting for? Let's act quickly. Everyone, gear up and prepare for actual combat exercises. The success or failure of this operation hinges on this. Let's give it our all, Andre shouted, his excitement palpable. Anduin's plan had garnered the absolute support of both Andre and Amelia, making them the most enthusiastic participants in the subsequent combat exercises. They were even stricter than Anduin in their preparations. End of this chapter. Chapter 5 Twacked. This time, The Aurors faced a tough challenge. After being divided into groups, they engaged in relentless tactical drills. On one hand, Hog, the referee, constantly created obstacles for them. On the other hand, Andre applied pressure intermittently. Anduin also set up numerous traps in the house. Occasionally, a cardboard cutout representing an enemy would pop up from a corner. If anyone responded too slowly, Hog would sneer from the sidelines. Concentrate. Remember to cast the silent amulet first when encountering enemies during troubleshooting. Hog barked. Are you all Aurors? You can't even perform simple actions like cutting corners to observe? When one person clears corner threats, the other should cover from behind. Cross alert. How many times have I told you to cross alert? The one in the back, yes you. Your vision is blocked by the companions in front. Why can't you understand such a simple operation? These usually high-spirited Aurors were frustrated by Hog's constant scrutiny. However, Director Andre had completely sided with Hog, so they had no choice but to endure it. Despite the high pressure and repeated practice, everyone's progress was swift. After all, it was just a troubleshooting exercise for a single environment, which wasn't too difficult for experienced Aurors. After a night of training, they could control the entire dormitory within 5 minutes. But the training didn't end there. Anduin allocated a significant amount of time to guide them in using various equipment and familiarizing themselves with the silver spear gun equipment. He didn't replicate the original version of the mask for the silver spear gun. Instead, he focused on creating 2 types of amulets and brewing potions. These faceless masks only had an anti-poison gas effect, added to prevent accidental injuries from their own hypnotic talismans. Anduin also mixed some temporary dyes and painted all the wands the same white as aspen wood. Since they needed to camouflage, it had to be perfect. Besides familiarizing themselves with the equipment, they also underwent special training to adopt the behavior patterns of the silver spear. For instance, they couldn't use their real names during communication. Everyone had to use a corresponding magical animal code name. After completing this series of training, it was already the next morning. Anduin saw that everyone was almost ready, so he allowed them to eat and rest. By nightfall, when they gathered again, everyone appeared well-rested and ready to go. It seems everyone is well-rested. Are you ready? Anduin asked, looking at the energetic crowd. Don't worry. After a day of familiarization, everyone has mastered both the tactics and the necessary coordination, Andre said confidently, standing at the front of the group. Well now, I officially announce that the concentric circle operation is starting, Anduin declared, nodding slightly. You will all stay in my suitcase for the time being, ready at any moment. After confirming that Claremont is also in Park number 3 today, we will seize this opportunity to catch everyone. Yes, the group responded in unison. Despite only a day of interaction, they showed great trust and admiration for Anduin, who was the commander-in-chief of this operation. Seeing this, Anduin began changing his clothes in front of everyone, donning a suit of silver spears. Tonight, my name is Golden Snidget, he announced. Anduin emerged from the suitcase into the outside world, then apparated to the top of the underground warehouse in Claremont. Using the shuttle curse, he drilled into the ground and sneaked directly into the warehouse. Instead of using the disappearing cabinet to enter the park immediately, he first arrived at the fireplace to modify the Flu network system. After summoning everyone, he emptied the underground warehouse completely, planning to transform it into a place for the wizards. Once the warehouse was empty, only the disappearing cabinet remained. Anduin intended to place the other end of the cabinet in his suitcase, allowing him to quickly transfer between locations even when controlling other parks. When Anduin returned to the core hub of Park number 1, it was around 9 o'clock in the evening. He released everyone from the suitcase. This is the center of the park? More than 40 wizards in silver spear costumes appeared on the second floor of the core hub. Since the operation had not yet started, they looked around with great interest. Yes, from now on, everyone keep silent. Do not touch anything in this room or cast spells. The ground and walls are part of the protective enchantment. If affected by magic, it could disrupt the outer protective shield, causing trouble, Anduin warned carefully. Don't worry, you've said it several times already. "Why are you nagging like an old woman?" a masked figure muttered. From the voice, it was clear it was Moody. "What's your opinion on girls?" Before Anduin could respond, another voice, obviously Amelia's, approached Moody. "Okay, sniff. If Tebow Warthog wants to complain, let him. He can't control his mouth anyway," Andrea teased, emphasizing Tebow Warthog. "You'd better take care of yourself first, Flobber Caterpillar," Moody, or Tebow Warthog, retorted viciously. Seeing them still in the mood to bicker, Anduin felt speechless. What made him even more exasperated was their method of choosing nicknames. They all wanted impressive or domineering magical animal names, resulting in several people wanting to be called unicorns, which left the real unicorn, Azalea, a bit dumbfounded. Because the quarrel over names was so ridiculous, Amelia suggested using a lottery to determine their code names. Moody ended up with Tebow Warthog, and Andrea, who had laughed at him, drew Flobber Caterpillar. Ignoring the chatter, Anduin knew they were trying to relieve tension before the action. He took out his communication headset to contact Shaltir. Although Shaltir knew Anduin was planning to attack the breeding park, she didn't know the exact time. She was still bored in the little Thunderbird's nest. However, the little Thunderbird wasn't playing as usual, but was nudging Shaltir with its beak. "Saul, what are you doing? Don't think you can be so presumptuous just because you have a name." Shaltir glanced impatiently at the little Thunderbird. Noticing its unusual behavior, she realized something was wrong. Recalling Anduin's words, her heart raced. Could it be that the action was happening today? Shaltir immediately took out her communication headset, and sure enough, Anduin's voice came through. "Shaltir, did you hear that?" "I heard, my lord. Did you sneak into the park again? Could it be that?" "That's right. The action will start tonight. Go to the residential area now and monitor the staff dormitories. As soon as the lights are completely off, notify me immediately. Also, keep an eye on Claremont's movements to see if he is preparing to leave," Anduin instructed carefully. "Understood, my lord." Shaltir had been waiting for this day. After more than 10 days of staying here, she was almost bored to death. She couldn't revert to her human form to avoid exposure, so after receiving Anduin's order, she felt a surge of excitement. After ending the call, Shaltir didn't delay. She immediately ran out of the shed, heading straight for the living area. At this time, in Park Number 4, the scene was still peaceful. As curfew approached, many wizards ended their night of entertainment and began returning to their residences. Nathan, the captain of the second team of the maintenance crew in the park, walked out of the bar, slightly drunk, chatting with a few acquaintances beside him. "Have you heard? Mr. Claremont mentioned at the last captain's meeting that our maintenance team will soon be equipped with protective gear," said a wizard, the captain of another maintenance team, his face flushed with either excitement or alcohol. "It's all thanks to our captain, Nathan. If he hadn't stood up for us and personally made suggestions to Lord Clar Emont, who knows how long we would have had to wait for this," Jimmy, a member of the second team who had recovered from a fire dragon injury, chimed in. Since then, he had become a loyal fan of Nathan and often bragged about him. "Is this true, Nathan? You are so brave. I wouldn't dare to approach Lord Claremont like that. Although he is easy to talk to, if you offend him, he could fire you on the spot." "My whole family depends on my salary," another wizard said, looking at Nathan with admiration. End of this chapter. Chapter 513, Society's Death. Don't listen to Jimmy's nonsense. I just came to make a suggestion. The reason for such a good result is the kindness of His Excellency Claremont. You don't know, he even gave me a bottle of good wine, Nathan said, slightly tipsy but still honest. He didn't like to brag, so he kept praising Claremont. I know, Jimmy shouted, jumping up. The next day, Captain Nathan shared the bottle of colorful brandy with us. It was really a good bottle of wine, and the taste was simply delicious. However, Jimmy's loud voice attracted some uninvited guests. "You guys, don't you know it's curfew time now? Why aren't you back in your dormitory instead of chatting on the street?" Two members of the patrol team, who had just finished their shift, scolded them. "What are you yelling at? Didn't you see we were rushing to the dormitory? What's the rush?" Jimmy interrupted, glared at the two patrolmen with dissatisfaction. The conflict between their maintenance team and the patrol team had been ongoing for a long time, so Jimmy assumed the patrolmen were just looking for trouble. It is clearly stipulated in the park that no one is allowed to stay outside their dormitory after 9 p.m. Now that the time has passed, you have clearly violated the regulations and dare to talk back? Do you think that the people in our patrol team are all good-tempered and won't enforce the law on you? A wizard from the patrol team sneered, placing his hand on the wand at his waist, ready to cast a spell. You cast spells on me now if you have the guts. You patrolling idiots, what else do you do every day besides nothing? Your magic wand isn't used to protect us, but to show off your power. You're a disgrace to the park, Jimmy yelled, clearly drunk. His loud voice attracted the attention of wizards in the surrounding dormitory buildings, who opened their windows to watch the scene on the street. You little bastard, how dare you talk to us like that? One of the patrolling wizards shouted, pulling out his wand and pointing it at Jimmy, ready to cast a spell. Nathan, realizing the situation was escalating, hurried forward to stop Jimmy. He addressed the two patrol members seriously. Jimmy is just drunk and talking nonsense. Don't push it too far. If this gets back to Lord Claremont, no one will be happy. The two patrol members looked at Jimmy ferociously, but Nathan's words made them hesitate. Claremont valued the park's stability, and if they cast spells on their own people, they might be punished. Nathan remained calm. Seeing the patrolman's hesitation, he added, "We are already on our way back to the dormitory. If you really care about the park's regulations, don't block our way, or your supervisor will blame you again." With that, Nathan pulled Jimmy and the others away. Jimmy, still dazed, wanted to curse more, but Nathan quickly covered his mouth. The two patrol members, intimidated by Nathan, didn't dare to act rashly. They gave Jimmy a vicious look, clearly remembering his impudence. The onlookers in the dormitory were disappointed. They had been working continuously for a long time in the closed park and were already very depressed. The quarrel had promised some excitement, but it ended without a fight, thanks to Nathan's intervention. Jimmy still complained bitterly. "Why don't you let me continue to scold them? The patrol team is a bunch of idiots. Come on, no matter how unbearable they are in our eyes, we can't just say it directly. You must know that Lord Claremont values the patrol team very much. It won't do us any good to mess with them," Nathan advised earnestly, looking at the young man in front of him. "Hey, don't think I don't know. That fellow Matthew told me that these people are all members of the West German Endeavor Society outside, and it's said that they are also connected to the black market in Berlin. They must have gotten in through their connections." Jimmy blushed drunkenly, continuing to complain with an expression of displeasure. "Shh, don't talk nonsense anymore. It'll be troublesome if you are overheard," Nathan cautioned, noticing that Jimmy was still talking nonsense. He was worried that Jimmy might say something incriminating to others after returning to his dormitory. After thinking about it, he decided to pull Jimmy back to his own residence. He planned to let Jimmy sleep in his room temporarily for the night to prevent any further trouble, especially since Matthew from the patrol team lived in Jimmy's dormitory. After settling Jimmy, Nathan felt exhausted. The heavy workload every day was no joke, but now his bed was occupied by Jimmy, and he didn't want to share it with another man. After some thought, Nathan decided to spend the night on the sofa in the living room downstairs, ensuring that both of them could rest without disturbance. As Nathan lay on the living room sofa, he couldn't help but recall the topic Jimmy had raised earlier. They had long been dissatisfied with the patrol team, but Jimmy was one of the few who dared to voice it openly. Nathan pondered Jimmy's words. Were those patrols really connected to the black market? If so, it meant these wizards might have criminal records. But why would such individuals be recruited into the park? Could it be that Lord Claremont was deceived? Or, Nathan suddenly woke from his drowsiness, shaking his head violently. Impossible. Mr. Claremont was such a good person. How could he be associated with criminals? There must be something more to it. Nathan didn't know if he was comforting himself or afraid of the implications of his thoughts, but he kept repeating this to himself. After muttering for a while, Nathan noticed something was wrong. The living room had suddenly become brighter, as if the door on the first floor had been opened. Suspicious, Nathan raised his head and looked towards the corridor leading to the door. To his surprise, he saw two wizards wearing masks and robes standing there. Nathan was taken aback and was about to scream, but the reaction of the two wizards was faster. The wizard in front immediately stretched out his left hand, casting some magic. Nathan found himself unable to make any sound, as if he had been struck dumb. Then he felt a sharp pain in his body. The wizard had quickly followed up with a stun spell from his white wand, hitting Nathan in the chest and rendering him unconscious. It's so dangerous. I didn't expect that the drill given by Golden Snidget would be really useful. Someone actually didn't stay in his room at night and went to sleep in the living room, one of the masked Aurors said, clearly startled by Nathan's sudden appearance. He patted his chest in relief. Stop talking nonsense and hurry up. If we're slower than the others, we'll definitely be laughed at later, the other Auror interrupted, urging his companion to focus on their task. Your stun spell was obviously a bit slower just now. I'll clear the obstacles ahead, and you cover me, one Auror reprimanded his partner, suggesting with a hint of disgust. Who's scared? I'm just a little nervous facing a real person. It's not my first fight. What's the big deal? The wizard in the front row muttered, clearly dissatisfied. Stop the nonsense, both of you. The mask may hide your voice from the outside world, but our communication earphones are on the same channel. Is it really necessary to chat in front of everyone? As I said, don't talk casually unless it's an emergency. Hurry up and complete the task. Anduin's voice came through their headsets, cutting through their argument. Realizing their mistake, the two Aurors felt a wave of embarrassment. They had forgotten that everyone else could hear their conversation. Sure enough, another voice came through the earphones. Report to Snidget. Team number 3 has completed the sweep of the entire floor. All personnel in the rooms have been controlled. Received. Team number 3, please transfer the controlled personnel to the lobby on the first floor and await further orders. Over, Anduin quickly responded. The two Aurors exchanged speechless glances. They wanted to comply into each other, but knew that any further conversation would be overheard. As they stood there, more mission completion reports came through the earphones, making them anxious. Why were the other teams moving so quickly? If they were the last to complete their task, it would be more than just embarrassing. Determined to avoid further humiliation, they quickly took action. Fortunately, the rest of their mission went smoothly, with no more unexpected encounters. However, they were still the last team to complete their control task. Despite this, it meant that the entire inner park had been successfully occupied by their forces. End of this chapter. Chapter 514, Interrogation. At this moment, more than 200 people were neatly stacked on the ground in front of the high tower in the center of the number 1 park. Though still alive, they resembled hundreds of corpses, creating a very eerie scene. Are you sure the number of people is accurate? Didn't anyone get missed? Andre, who was standing in front of the minaret and observing the scene, asked a wizard responsible for counting the manpower. Report, Flobber Caterpillar. A total of 213 people are here, including Claremont himself, who was personally captured by King Snidget and the 6 patrols outside the park. At the same time, everyone's wands and belongings were seized, and we conducted thorough searches. I'm certain there are no dangerous factors, the masked wizard reported, checking the list in his hand. No one forces you to use your code name every time you talk to me, Andre said, glancing at the wizard with exasperation. He found that these guys seemed to be addicted to role-playing games, insisting on using code names in every conversation. Yes, Lord Flobberworm, the wizard replied. No one could see his expression, but Andre guessed he was struggling to hold back laughter. Feeling helpless, Andre decided not to dwell on these details. Is the follow-up operation going smoothly? Did Jin Facia say how to proceed next? Oh no, Birdsnake has already brought trolls, thorns, and others to deal with those magical animals. His box has a very large space, enough to accommodate all these animals. As for your excellency Golden Snidget, he said that you, Thibaut Warthog, and Nixiu should bring Claremont to him now. He will then take the lead in transferring these wizards, the wizard explained. Okay, keep an eye on things here, Andre instructed carefully. He then walked around the crowd, in front of him and entered a dormitory closest to the square where Anduin had set up the headquarters for the concentric circle action team. In the reception room on the second floor, Anduin, Moody, and Amelia were standing in a small circle. Lying on the ground in the middle was Claremont, who had been captured by Anduin himself. "The operation is going well, but what should we do with this park?" Andre asked the other three, glancing at the still unconscious Claremont on the ground. His question was mainly directed at Anduin, who had meticulously planned almost every detail of the operation. Despite the large target and the significant number of wizards involved, the entire raid had been executed swiftly. The more than 200 people had been controlled in less than half an hour, earning Anduin the trust and confidence of both the Aurors and Andre's team. Anduin responded calmly, "I've arranged for people to carry out the valuable materials in the park. We've recovered all the equipment belonging to the Silver Flash Trading Company, including alchemy props. The rest is a huge amount of weather blankets, which we'll use to take care of the magical animals for now. Those magical animals and their resources are currently under the care of Bird and Snake. They will be redistributed after the matter is resolved. As for the core hub, although we can collect a lot of materials, we need to keep it operational for now to avoid exposing our target prematurely." In Park Number 1, they had counted a significant amount of supplies. In addition to daily necessities for commoner wizards, there were numerous byproducts of magical animals, potions, alchemy props, and more. The most valuable assets were the magical animals themselves, representing a considerable amount of resources and wealth. The German and British Ministry of Magic, as well as other involved parties, would need to decide how to handle these assets moving forward. As the Silver Flash Trading Company, represented by Anduin, along with the other two participating parties, prepared to share the spoils, it was clear that the allocation of resources was a delicate matter. Anduin, in particular, didn't demand much, especially when it came to magical animals. However, he didn't mind keeping some Thibaut warthogs and ream cattle as backup food. Before their arrival, they had agreed that all alchemy equipment, materials, and most byproducts produced by magical animals, except for the weather blanket, would belong to Anduin. This included the pair of disappearing cabinets and the core hub in the park. However, Anduin chose not to dismantle the core hub immediately to avoid drawing attention. The materials used in the Magic Spire were valuable, and he was determined not to let them go. The magical animals and weather blankets, except for the little Thunderbird Thor, along with all Thibaut warthogs and ream cows, were to be handed over to the Ministries of Magic of the two countries. Since Andre had a vested interest in the follow-up actions and the British side had come to assist, the German side's allocation was relatively small, about a quarter of the total. However, the German Ministry of Magic, still under Pete's control, had no immediate place to house these magical animals. Therefore, Newt would temporarily keep them until the second phase of the combat plan yielded results, after which the animals belonging to Germany would be shipped back. Even if this operation failed to capture the leader of the Silver Lance, the British Ministry of Magic would not suffer a loss. The spoils alone were enough for the Wizengamot to finalize a deal with Sirius. "These arrangements are as we discussed earlier. You know my focus isn't on these properties," Andre said, shaking his head indifferently. "What should we do next? This operation went surprisingly smoothly. Shouldn't we take advantage of the current situation to capture the other two breeding bases? If we maintain this efficiency, we can control all three parks before dawn." "That's right," Amelia agreed, nodding. "To avoid any complications, it's better to act quickly. We should secure all the wizards in the park first and then deal with other matters." Moody echoed their sentiments. "We should indeed speed up. There are many civilian wizards to resettle. They will sleep until noon at most, and transferring them will take time. Not to mention, we need to assign people to guard them. Even if we confiscate their wands, it will take more than a dozen people to control so many wizards. We must secure all the parks before placing these wizards. Otherwise, we will have to divide our forces to manage them, leaving us short-handed for further raids." The three of them kept urging Anduin, mainly because they hadn't expected the operation to go so smoothly. It had been less than 2 hours since they started, and it was just past midnight. This success was a testament to Anduin's meticulous pre-war preparations, and it boosted their confidence. They were eager to set off immediately to capture the other 2 parks. "I understand everyone wants to capitalize on our momentum," Anduin said. "Defeating the other 2 parks is indeed urgent, and I plan to lead the team shortly. However, there's one more thing we need to address before the official attack." Anduin nodded towards Claremont. "Him? What do you mean? Stop playing charades with us," Moody said impatiently, glancing at Claremont. Seeing their impatience, Anduin decided to explain further. "From the evidence I showed, you should be able to see that, although this Claremont is not an official Silver Spear, his identity is very important. I tried to explore his memory, but unfortunately, his brain is protected by a spell. So I'm going to take this opportunity to test him and see if I can get any useful information." "You want to interrogate him? It's not impossible. I also want to hear him reveal Pete's identity." Andre nodded, then frowned. "But why rush now? Can't we interrogate them after we take down all the parks?" "Actually, I wouldn't even call it an interrogation. To put it bluntly, I just want to take this opportunity to deceive him," Anduin sneered. "As for why I'm in such a hurry, I want someone to tell the truth. Naturally, it's best to take advantage of him when he's uneasy," says I. "Although we are now acting as the Silver Spear, if we drag this out for too long, Claremont, an old fox familiar with the club, will inevitably see through us. The effect won't be as good as it is now." Having said that, Anduin took off his mask. When the other 3 saw his face, they were slightly taken aback. After a moment of contemplation, they nodded in agreement. Claremont, who was in a daze, felt as if someone was pushing him. He was a little disoriented, remembering that he had been concentrating on his work in the office before suddenly feeling sleepy and finally falling asleep on his desk. "Gale? What time is it?" Claremont opened his eyes slightly, but the bright light in the room made it difficult to keep them open. Instinctively, he rubbed his eyes, feeling that his sleep had been too deep. But after a moment, he realized something was wrong. Why did he feel like he was lying down? Shouldn't he be at his desk? With a little puzzlement, Claremont gradually got used to the bright light in front of him. When he finally saw the scene clearly, it felt as if his soul was leaving his body, and his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Right next to the floor where he was lying, 4 silver spears were surrounding him, one of them kicking him roughly. End of this chapter. Chapter 515, The Current Year. "This? My lords, what are you doing here? Why are you here?" Claremont struggled to sit up, looking at the 4 figures before him with a dazed expression. Despite his confusion, he still used honorifics out of habit. "You still have the nerve to ask us? I should be asking you why the information about the park was leaked." Anduin, played by Silver Spear, demanded in a harsh tone. His voice was familiar to Claremont. "Did you betray us?" Claremont was startled upon hearing the voice. Isn't this the voice of King Snidget? Did he come to the park in person? What did he mean by betrayal? And why am I lying on the ground? This isn't my office. Without doubting the familiar voice, Claremont quickly responded, "What do you mean? I don't understand. Betrayal? I've never thought of betraying the club." "Then why is it rumored that the club secretly manages the breeding park? Now even the location of Park No. 1 has been revealed, and the affairs of those non-governmental organizations have all been exposed." Anduin asked angrily, "Do you know that Andre and his subordinates are ready to attack here?" "What?" Claremont looked at Anduin in shock. "How is this possible? I've never heard anything like this before." Still denying it, my insider in the legal enforcement department has already told me everything. Andre is organizing manpower to attack this park. If I hadn't reacted in time, this place would have been emptied long ago. Besides you, who else could have spread the news? Silver Spear had no insider in the Department of Legal Enforcement, but he figured Pete would have placed someone there. He was ready to bluff, regardless. "You mean Virgil? No way. Did he make a mistake?" Claremont asked, not questioning the accusation. When Claremont mentioned the name Virgil, Andre, standing nearby, couldn't help but be shocked, his face showing disbelief. Fortunately, he was wearing a mask, so his expression was hidden. Anduin noticed Andre's reaction and glanced at him, signaling to stay calm and not to alert Claremont. Andre nodded subtly, forcing himself to suppress his anger. He realized the importance of interrogating Claremont now. Delaying could have disastrous consequences. Claremont, in a panic, didn't notice the strangeness of the people in front of him. He truly believed what the Golden Snidget said. Desperately, he tried to recall if he had inadvertently revealed the secret to outsiders. After a while, he was still at a loss. He couldn't figure out what went wrong, but he knew he was already suspected by Golden Snidget. If the charge of betrayal was confirmed, he would be finished. "My lord, you know I have always been loyal to the club. I have no reason to betray the club. I think either Virgil made a mistake or the problem lies elsewhere," Claremont stammered, trying to justify himself. "No reason to betray the club," Golden Snidget snorted coldly. "You've been prevented from entering the club and becoming an official Silver Spearman. How dare you say you don't hold any grudges? How many benefits did Andre and the others offer you to turn against us?" "Absolutely not, Mr. Golden Snidget." Claremont was suddenly disturbed, seeing that the other party had almost identified him as a traitor. To be honest, he knew that Golden Snidget and other Silver Spears had been stringing him along. With his achievements, he should have at least become an ordinary short spear, if not more. Claremont found himself in a precarious situation, feeling the weight of his past decisions bearing down on him. He had always been a loyal member of the club, but now, faced with the stern gaze of Anduin, he felt his loyalty being questioned. "My lord, I became a partner of the club through your personal recommendation. Have you forgotten?" Claremont pleaded, his voice tinged with desperation. He knew that Anduin had already made up his mind, but he hoped to appeal to their long-standing relationship. "We have known each other for more than 30 years. You should know who I am and how much I have done for the club and for you. If these things are known to the law enforcement department and Andre, I will not end well." Anduin's expression remained cold and unyielding. "Don't you think it's too late to listen to me now? People say that you know people but don't know their hearts. How do I know that you haven't been acting with me all these years?" He raised his hand slightly and removed his mask, revealing the same face as Pete underneath. Claremont's face turned pale at the sight of Pete's face under the Snidget mask. He knew that this was a sign of Pete's extreme anger. Amelia, Andre, and the others beside him saw Claremont's reaction and became even more convinced that Anduin was right. Pete was a member of the Silver Spear, and he had known Claremont for a long time, single-handedly promoting his development. "Since you keep bringing up the past, I will give you another chance now," Anduin said in a low voice, facing Claremont with Pete's face. "Let me hear you repeat what you have done for so many years, and at the same time, let me see if there is any confusion in your memory. Remember, look into my eyes and say it." "Yes, my lord," Claremont replied, knowing that Pete wanted to test him. He was eager to prove his loyalty and had no doubts after seeing Pete's true face. However, his mind was completely confused at this time. If Claremont could keep calm and think, he might not be so easily deceived. For example, why did Pete dare to take off his mask in front of the other 3 Silver Spears and abruptly ask him to narrate the past? These were signs that something was abnormal. But all Claremont could think of now was to show his loyalty to Pete, and he had no time to think about other things. "I still remember that 30 years ago, I was just a small role in the Triss Crucible shop. I was fortunate enough to meet you. By the way, you didn't have your current name at that time," Claremont began, his expression devout and grateful. "Since I met you, I have had good luck. You funded me so that I could start my own magic supplies business. I will never forget this." Anduin, playing Pete, showed no reaction to Claremont's flattery. Seeing this, Claremont continued, "With your help, I made my first pot of gold. From then on, you started exposing me to the smuggling business and introducing me to the club. Over the years, I have lost count of how many magical animals I have transported, guarded, and looked after for the club. If Andre's people know my details, there is no possibility of negotiating terms. So if Andre is willing not to pursue your past, are you willing to accept their conditions?" Pete sneered, showing no sympathy for Claremont's emotional plea. "No, that's not what I meant." Claremont quickly explained, realizing that Pete had misunderstood him. Not counting my helping the club manage magical animals, just consider the dirty work I have done for you over the past 10 years. Andre has absolutely no chance of forgiving me. Claremont glanced at Pete tentatively, finding the other party still indifferent. He continued, "Do you remember 15 years ago? That's when you started to use the identity of Dario Pete, and since then, you have transformed this body into what it is now. This skin?" Anduin's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words. Could it be that, apart from having the means to appear in two places at once, the Golden Snidget also has a way to change his appearance? Could that guy also be a transfiguration magus? However, he quickly suppressed these doubts. Now was not the time to get entangled in such thoughts. This interrogation required very high acting skills, and he couldn't let Claremont see any flaws. His indifference successfully deceived Claremont, who immediately continued, "Even if you don't care about it, since then, you ordered me to start contacting civil groups in East and West Germany and to try to integrate and lead them. After years of hard work, the West German Endeavor Association that I lead and the Munich Federation that split off from it have more than hundreds of wizards under their command and close to hundreds of core collaborators. Have you forgotten? It is by bewitching them that we have been able to intensify the conflict between East and West Germany over the years. In fact, I knew from the beginning that your ideal is to completely split Germany. There are many civil organizations in East Germany that are also collaborators of the club, like the East German Progressive Union. I know that Master Phoenix of the club was in contact, and she was the one who instigated and manipulated an East German wizard to kill the eldest son of the Schmidt family in public. They then used public opinion to allow the East German Progressive Trade Union to shelter that East German wizard. That's why the Schmidt family and their allied families fully supported you and went forward and retreated with you in the Wizengamot, didn't they? They further pushed forward the division bill. End of this chapter. Chapter 5-16, Memory. The members of the Schmidt family alliance don't know it yet. They think you are pushing the split bill under their pressure. How dare I betray you? If I betray the club, even if Andre is willing to let me go, am I not afraid that people from the Schmidt family will trouble me? Claremont's voice trembled as he spoke, his demeanor one of utter humility, making himself appear pitiable. His words, however, struck like a bolt of lightning to those present, especially Andre, who was left speechless in shock. The revelation that the silver spears within the club were not only inciting civil war among wizards, but also targeting wizard families, was staggering. It suddenly made sense why Pete had garnered so much support from many Wizengamot commentators when he introduced the so-called Division Act after coming to power. Andre had always believed that the wizard families were instigating Pete. Even up until today, he thought that a group of Wizengamot counselors, led by the Schmidt family, were secretly colluding with the Silver Spear. He never expected such a hidden truth. At the same time, Andre finally understood why the Phoenix, who was in charge of the French branch, often appeared in Germany. Every so often, she would suddenly show up at previous surveillance points, but never in the public eye. Presumably, she came to Germany to manage these civil organizations in East Germany. The Phoenix must have played a crucial role in the German split plan, possibly designing the entire plan with the Golden Snidget. "This doesn't explain anything," Anduin said sternly, his face hard as stone, as if he had already accepted Claremont's betrayal of the club. "After all, you are not someone who witnessed the Schmidt family firsthand, so it is easy to sever ties. Not to mention, Andre can promise to help you hide it." "No, Andre will definitely not let me go," Claremont swallowed hard, his fear palpable. "Did you forget that, to help you gain a firm foothold in the Ministry of Magic, I won over those few ministers? I once instigated the child of the director of the Department of Magical Transportation to injure Andre's son, causing his son to be permanently crippled. You used this incident to create a rift between the two directors. The director of the Department of Magical Transportation became the first person to join the club, and the director of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures I seduced him into embezzling company funds to gamble on Quidditch. Have you forgotten? This entire park was built from scratch by me. If Andre and the people from the Ministry of Magic knew the things I have done, how could they let me go? No matter how foolish I am, it is impossible to join them now. The fear of the Golden Snidget seemed to be etched into Claremont's very soul. Feeling the Golden Snidget's suspicion, he couldn't hold back and revealed all the dirty work he had done for the club, hoping to prove that he had no possibility of betraying it. Claremont knew that leaving the club would mean certain death. Andre, hearing Claremont's confession, felt a surge of anger ignite within him. His son had dueled with the child of the Director of Magical Transport over a trivial matter, resulting in severe injury to his son. Andre had harbored resentment for years, never showing a kind face to the Director of the Department of Magical Transportation. He never imagined that the Silver Spear had orchestrated the entire incident. Furious, Andre was on the verge of exploding, but he suddenly felt a strong pressure on his body. Turning his head, he found Anduin stopping him, preventing him from acting on his rage. "Of lying to me again," Anduin demanded, his voice cold and unyielding. Claremont swallowed hard, his throat dry and his heart pounding. "In the secret room, I have documents and artifacts that I have collected over the years. Some of them are related to the club's operations, but others are personal acquisitions. I swear, I never intended to betray you or the club. I was just trying to secure my position." Anduin's eyes narrowed further, scrutinizing Claremont's every word and gesture. "You expect me to believe that? You were hiding critical information that could jeopardize our entire operation. Do you understand the gravity of your actions?" Claremont nodded frantically, his face pale and drenched in sweat. "Yes, my lord, I understand. I was wrong. Please, give me a chance to make amends. I will hand over everything in the secret room to you. Just spare me this once." Anduin remained silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke with a voice as sharp as a blade. "You will take me to this secret room immediately. If I find that you have lied to me again, there will be no mercy." Claremont's legs felt weak, but he managed to stand and lead Anduin to his residence. The journey was tense, with Claremont's mind racing through possible outcomes. He knew that his life hung by a thread, and any misstep could be his last. Upon reaching Claremont's residence, he led Anduin to a hidden door behind a bookshelf. With trembling hands, he revealed the entrance to the secret room. Anduin's eyes scanned the room, taking in the various documents, artifacts, and other items stored within. "Start explaining," Anduin ordered, his tone leaving no room for hesitation. Claremont began to detail the contents of the room, pointing out items of significance and their relevance to the club's operations. He revealed hidden caches of information, smuggling routes, and even some personal notes that he had kept for leverage. As Claremont spoke, Anduin's expression remained stern, but he listened intently. When Claremont finished, Anduin took a deep breath and spoke with a measured tone. "You have one chance to prove your loyalty. From now on, you will report directly to me. Any further deception, and you will not live to see another day. Do you understand?" Claremont nodded vigorously, relief washing over him. "Yes, my lord, I understand. Thank you for your mercy." Anduin turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Remember, Claremont, trust is earned, not given. You have a long way to go to regain mine." With that, Anduin left the secret room, leaving Claremont to contemplate the narrow escape he had just experienced. He knew that his every move would be watched closely from now on, and any misstep could be his last. "You can't lie to me, even if I can't read your mind. At least I can tell if you're lying." Anduin's voice was calm, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent as he confronted Pete. Yes, I wouldn't dare hide anything," Claremont stammered, trembling with fear under Anduin's gaze. "In that secret room, I hid some memories." "Memories?" Anduin's brow furrowed. "Weren't your memories cursed? How can you extract them?" Yes, Claremont stuttered, becoming increasingly incoherent. "I discovered by accident that if the extraction is done quickly, the newly generated memory won't be immediately protected by the secret-keeping magic." "Oh, how long ago did you make this discovery?" Anduin's expression shifted to one of amusement, sensing he had stumbled upon something significant. Claremont's eyes widened in panic. "My lord, I was wrong. I didn't mean any harm, my lord. Stop with the nonsense and answer my question, Anduin snapped. Yes, Claremont replied, trembling. I found that under normal circumstances, memories generated within 6 hours can still be retrieved. And how many memories have you hidden? What kind of memories are they? Don't you mind telling me? Anduin had a good idea of what these memories contained, but he wanted Claremont to admit it. Claremont hesitated for a long time, unable to continue. Finally, under Anduin's cold gaze, he closed his eyes and yelled, trembling. The memories I kept are of meeting you and other important figures at the club over the past 10 years. I'm sorry, Mr. Pete. I just wanted to keep them as souvenirs. I had no other intentions, I swear, my lord. At this moment, Claremont didn't resemble a nearly 70-year-old man, but rather a child caught in a mistake, pleading for forgiveness. He crawled towards Anduin, tears streaming down his face, and tried to grasp Anduin's robe, but Anduin easily sidestepped him. End of this chapter. Chapter 517, The Spear That Pierces the Club. Claremont understood the gravity of the situation, especially after Jin Snidget learned of the information. His so-called loyalty now seemed like a joke. He knew he couldn't hide anything anymore. In the current situation, if he didn't reveal everything, he would be dead. If he told the truth, there was a slim chance the other party might spare him. Claremont didn't want to die. He really didn't want to. The 4 people next to him were also taken aback by Claremont's explosive revelation. The memory of contact with the Silver Spear over the past 10 years? This was direct evidence that could prove the Silver Spear's involvement with the club and their attempt to split the German wizarding world. Even Anduin didn't expect such a significant gain from simply scaring him. Moreover, Claremont had been quite shady. He had been collecting evidence of his dealings with the Silver Spear, clearly with dual intentions. Anduin guessed that Claremont knew that his work with the club was a dangerous game. Keeping these memories was probably a precaution. If the club collapsed or Claremont's actions were exposed, he could use these memories to make a deal with the Ministry of Magic, becoming a tainted witness and securing a way out for himself. Anduin's guess was spot on. Claremont had seen big storms before. When he first learned that the Silver Spear and Golden Snidget wanted to plot against the German Ministry of Magic, he was pessimistic. After all, this was almost like going against the entire German magical world, and the probability of failure was high. So, he stored these memories as a survival strategy for his future self. However, Claremont didn't expect the club's plan to split Germany to go so smoothly. In just a decade, East and West Germany seemed to be at odds with each other. In a few years, even the Ministry of Magic might officially split. Therefore, in the past 2 years, Claremont had seldom extracted and stored memories because he found that the club seemed to have a greater chance of winning. But he still kept the previously stored memories, understanding the wisdom of having multiple escape routes. Unfortunately, Claremont never expected to be caught by Jin Snidget before the Ministry of Magic could get to him. Anduin quickly adjusted his mood after learning the shocking news and continued to play the role of Golden Snidget with the skill of a well-trained actor. Want to keep it as a souvenir? Jin Snidget's indifferent face gradually turned ferocious. Are you trying to comfort yourself by saying this? Or are you treating me as a fool? It turns out that you are really a traitor, and these memories are your bargaining chips with the Ministry of Magic. Your thinking is quite audacious. No, my lord, I know I was wrong. I am willing to give all these memories to you. As long as you let me live, I will even sign a harsher contract. Claremont pleaded desperately, abandoning all pretense. Of course, I will take the memory. As for you, I will decide your fate after I review those memories. Anduin leaned over, grabbed Claremont by the neck, and dragged him to the window. Look at the trouble you've caused the club. Because of your idiocy, 3 breeding bases will have to be abandoned. Claremont's eyes widened as he stared blankly at the large pile of corpses outside the window. His face turned even paler. My lord, did you kill all these people to silence them? Do you think I'm as stupid as you? Jin Snidget snorted coldly. Since the matter has been exposed, from today onwards, you will no longer be part of this club. Collaboration with the club, it would be a significant breach of trust. The so-called collaborators will now work for the club in another capacity, Jin Snidget declared. The losses incurred this time will be deducted from your future salaries. What? Claremont trembled at the words. Was Jin Snidget planning to turn everyone from employees into slaves? This decision shocked Claremont, who had been cooperating with the club for many years. The club had always operated smoothly in Germany, making few enemies and even gaining many supporters openly. Was such a drastic measure really necessary? Could there be something happening in the outside world that he was unaware of? Had the situation deteriorated so badly? Was Pete's identity exposed? Did something go wrong with the club's split plans? Was this why the Silver Spear was resorting to such extreme measures? Claremont's mind was a whirlwind of confusion, trying to piece together the information. The sight of the large group of captured wizards and muggles in front of him was overwhelming. However, this chaos also brought a sliver of hope. Perhaps his own life might be spared. This thought calmed him slightly. Anduin observed Claremont's reaction and nodded secretly, satisfied that he had convinced Claremont that everything happening was orchestrated by the Silver Spear. Next, he would use Claremont as a tool to cut through the club's defenses. With a cold smile, Anduin cast a stun spell on Claremont, putting him into a deep sleep. This bastard, you really took advantage of him, releasing all his pent-up anger after seeing Anduin knock out Claremont. The Silver Spear is really going too far, using such insidious means to control the situation, Amelia said, shocked by the revelations. But thanks to Anduin's thorough consideration, we were able to uncover the club's conspiracy. Anduin's face shifted back to his own from Pete's. I didn't expect to get so much valuable information from Claremont. Fortunately, our acting was convincing enough that he didn't notice anything amiss. If he had realized we weren't the real Silver Spear, the secret-keeping contract in his mind would have activated, preventing him from divulging any valuable information. Anduin had extensively researched the Silver Spear's brain protection methods. He found that pretending to deceive was more effective than extorting confessions through force. Except for a few high-status members, ordinary members couldn't reveal information about the Silver Spear if they believed you were the enemy. The scene he showed Claremont was a setup to continue the deception. Otherwise, Claremont might have been too shocked to explain anything after seeing Anduin capture so many people. Director Andre, Anduin turned to the burly figure next to him. You heard what Claremont said. Over the years, the Silver Spear has used various insidious means in Germany to win over and divide the Ministry of Magic. They've intensified conflicts among the folk wizards and even placed people around you. I understand. I won't take any chances with the Silver Spear and Pete, Andre sighed. Initially skeptical, he now had no doubts. The idea of a criminal group trying to control the country seemed far-fetched, but Claremont's detailed account of the club's infiltration into the German wizarding world and the Ministry of Magic erased any hesitation. Andre, who is the Virgil that Claremont mentioned, and what is his situation in the law enforcement department? Amelia asked, recalling the insider Claremont had mentioned. She looked at Andre with concern, worried about the implications if Andre had disclosed their collaboration with the club. Andre sighed heavily, his voice tinged with regret. Virgil, he was the deputy commander of the Aura Command in the law enforcement department. He had always performed exceptionally well and was one of my most trusted confidants. Moody's expression turned serious. And this time? No, I didn't disclose the details of this operation to him, Anduin replied, a hint of fear in his voice. Fortunately, Anduin had emphasized the importance of confidentiality to me beforehand. I simply transferred this group of Auras without revealing any information to anyone in the department before joining you. I had originally planned to recruit some people from the ministry for this operation, and Virgil was one of the candidates. It's a good thing we discovered his true allegiance early. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Andre's eyes hardened as he looked at the three people beside him. Since there are spies from the club within the law enforcement department, we must ensure that future actions do not involve anyone who hasn't signed a confidentiality contract. Additionally, the 16 people under my command can't remain out of the Ministry of Magic's sight for too long. We'll need to rely on you for the upcoming plans. That's the right approach, Amelia agreed, nodding. After tonight, I'll transfer more personnel from the UK. We need more than just a few wizards to guard against such threats. Thank you, Amelia. The German Ministry of Magic will not forget your assistance, Andre said gratefully. He then turned to Anduin. What should we do next? I'll follow your lead on the follow-up plan. By now, Andre's trust in Anduin was absolute. Without Anduin's intervention, Andre might have remained in the dark for much longer. Anduin pondered for a moment before responding. Next, I plan to head to Claremont's residence. Those memories might be more valuable in bringing down the club than these parks. I'll do my best to expedite the process and avoid any delays. After that, we'll raid the other 2 parks. End of this chapter. Chapter 518, The Conclusion, Seeking Monthly Ticket Recommendations. All right, Andre acknowledged the importance of Claremont's memories and nodded in agreement. We'll stay here and help Newt take care of the magical creatures. Don't push yourself too hard. Obtaining those memories is crucial for us. Don't worry, Anduin reassured them. I've gathered all the information I need from Claremont. I'll be quick. Without further ado, Anduin opened the window and flew out. His trip didn't take long, just over half an hour. The results were significant. Claremont had a pensieve in his secret room, and Anduin filled 2 boxes with extracted threads of memory. Due to time constraints, he didn't examine them individually, but stored them away for later. In addition to the memories, Anduin found numerous ledgers in Claremont's secret room, documenting extensive magical animal transactions. While not as valuable as the memories, these ledgers were still precious. It was clear that Claremont was a cunning old fox, always prepared for any eventuality. If the silver spear ever fell, Claremont would likely be the first to betray them. Upon returning, Anduin discovered that Newt, Hagrid, and the others had not yet finished handling the magical creatures. The park housed too many, especially high-risk ones, which required considerable time to manage. Realizing they couldn't afford to wait, Anduin, Andre, and the others decided to split into 2 groups. Newt and Hagrid would stay to manage the magical creatures, with 3 aurors assigned to watch over the sleeping wizards. The rest re-entered Anduin's suitcase, and he led the assault on the other 2 parks. Although this meant they had 4 fewer attackers, experts like Andre, Amelia, Moody, and Scrimgeour were more than capable of handling the task. They had practiced standardized tactical actions and were fully prepared to control a wizard's dormitory alone. Additionally, Shaltir had rejoined the team and was ready to contribute. The attacks on the other 2 parks went smoothly. Anduin used a different infiltration method than he had for Park No. 1, but thanks to the information gathered from the core hub of Park No. 1, he could breach the outer barriers silently without alerting the enemies inside. The operations were essentially a repeat of the first park's raid. Anduin bypassed the outer patrols, infiltrated the interior, and released 7 attack teams covered by disillusionment charms. They subdued the patrols and night shift medical wizards, broke through the doors, and controlled the residential dormitories. Finally, Anduin dealt with the peripheral patrol wizards. The high degree of homogeneity in the internal layout of these parks made the raids efficient. The protection, personnel allocation, and architectural layout were nearly identical to Park No. 1. The 2 raids took less than 3 hours in total, and they completed the mission before dawn. This was the advantage of standardized tactics and detailed procedures. Anduin's operations impressed all the aurors. Even Andre, a seasoned veteran, was amazed by the effectiveness of these standardized tactics. It was a revelation for him. It was the first time he had experienced such a large-scale armed operation, and also the first time he had completed an attack mission so effortlessly. In the entire Concentric Circles project, dozens of wizards from different countries participated in the operation. After just 1 day of training, they executed the task with remarkable coordination, like 10 fingers on one hand. It was quite a daunting task. The most critical raid plan of the Concentric Circle operation had been completed, and preliminary statistics from the 3 parks were quickly compiled. The Concentric Circle project had captured 528 individuals, including 273 wizards and 255 muggles. Additionally, they had seized a total of 1,231 magical animals, including 227 high-risk magical creatures rated XXXX or higher, and 14 dragons. To be honest, veterans like Newt, Amelia, and Andre, who were accustomed to large-scale operations, were shocked by the sheer number of people and magical animals. Remarkably, this wasn't even the maximum capacity of the 3 parks. The interior of the breeding bases wasn't completely filled. Park number 1 had the largest population and number of magical animals, yet less than 1/3 of its area was occupied. The park in West Germany was slightly more than half full, while the park in East Germany, though relatively full, had the smallest absolute capacity due to its smaller area. If all 3 parks were filled to capacity, the number of magical animals could exceed 2,000. After securing the 3 parks, the real challenge began. Handling the wizards and muggles was straightforward. They used levitation spells to control them and place them into Anduin's suitcase, transferring them to a large underground warehouse. As long as they were managed properly and provided with food and daily necessities, no one would die. Anduin worked tirelessly, stuffing all the captives into suitcases and transporting them to the underground warehouse along with daily necessities, food, drinking water, and other supplies. He then secured the disappearing cabinet in the warehouse and temporarily modified the flue network circuit of the fireplace to connect it to a safe house provided by Andre. This ensured that future access to the warehouse would require passing through the disappearing cabinet. Selecting caretakers for the captives was a top priority. The caretakers couldn't be overly compassionate, as any leniency could lead to uncontrollable situations if the wizards united to cause trouble. They needed to be suppressed with an iron fist. Anduin's first choice was Moody, who was known for his stern demeanor and lack of tolerance for strangers, let alone a group of Silver Spear accomplices. He appointed Moody as the head of the stronghold and assigned 9 experienced strikers and 6 calm British aurors to manage the captives. Anduin also instructed them to be cautious in their words and actions, to fully assume the identity of the Silver Spear, and not to be too polite when dealing with the wizards and muggles. To ensure their identities remained concealed, Anduin provided them with masks equipped with voice-changing devices. Moody accepted the arrangement with a grim smile, which made Anduin a bit uneasy. He specifically reminded Moody not to kill anyone, fearing that Moody might get carried away and kill someone in a fit of excitement or anger. With the warehouse base arrangements in place, Anduin turned his attention to dealing with the magical animals in the breeding bases. In fact, the real troubles were those magical animals. Before Newt arrived, he had never imagined there would be so many magical creatures that needed to be housed. Thanks to Anduin's foresight, food, medicine, and other supplies were fully prepared in advance. However, Newt's super-large suitcase couldn't accommodate all the magical animals at once. The sheer number and variety of these creatures, flying, terrestrial, and aquatic, made the transfer process slow and cumbersome. They couldn't simply place the magical animals in the park, as it was enemy territory. Newt, despite his old age, had to make multiple trips between the UK and Germany without rest. Anduin estimated that it would take at least 3 days to clear all the magical animals from the park. Unfortunately, there was no better solution. Fortunately, Anduin had recently acquired a pair of vanishing cabinets, which made traveling between the 2 countries easier and avoided the torment of using portkeys repeatedly. First, Newt returned to England with a vanishing cabinet and the first batch of magical animals. After settling them there, he returned to Germany through the vanishing cabinet. The process of continuous shipment began. Time was tight, and Anduin knew that the disappearance of Claremont and others would soon arouse the club's suspicion. Additionally, due to a recent significant drop in smuggled cargo volume, the Silver Spear had started using magical animals from the park to supplement their stock. In a few days, it would be time for transshipment, and the club's Silver Spear would contact the park, potentially exposing their operations. Speeding up the transfer was the only viable option. Anduin couldn't conjure hundreds of people out of thin air. Fortunately, with Newt's space suitcase and Anduin's vanishing cabinet, transportation efficiency was greatly improved. Anduin, Hagrid, Newt, Professor Kettleburn, and others personally handled the high-risk magical animals. The rest of the Aurors, including Shaltir, who had just rejoined the team, and non-human creatures like Hog and Thor, were all fully engaged. This collective effort ensured that the transportation process proceeded smoothly without too many complications. End of this chapter. Chapter 519, Harvest. After 2.5 days, the remaining 20 or so people, along with 2 animals, managed to transport all the magical creatures out of Germany. During this period, everyone was constantly on the move. When they were tired and sleepy, they relied on potions to keep them going. This high-intensity work was challenging for young people like Anduin, and even more so for older individuals like Newt and Amelia. By the end of the busy work, Anduin felt that Newt was on the verge of passing out, with only the resilient Hagrid and Shaltir managing to stay awake. However, the hard work of these 2 days was not in vain. More than 1,000 magical animals were successfully transferred. Among them were nearly 100 ream cows and Tebow warthogs, which were kept in Anduin's suitcase. It wasn't because Anduin was greedy and insisted on bringing these spare foods with him, but because there were very few places in the entire UK where these magical animals could be housed securely without the risk of news leaking out. The situation was even more complicated with the high-risk creatures, including 14 fire dragons, 9 chimeras, 6 venomous leopards, and 4 manticores. Housing these XXXXX-rated magical animals was extremely difficult, as any one of them escaping could cause a disaster. These high-risk creatures were now all housed in Newt's private park. However, the rest of the magical animals, even with the space in Anduin's suitcase, could only be partially accommodated. To address this, Professor Kettleburn contacted Dumbledore, who took the risk of placing the remaining magical animals on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Dumbledore strengthened the control of Hogwarts and strictly prohibited young wizards from approaching the Forbidden Forest, even considering canceling the Quidditch games that year. Fortunately, the headmaster did not go that far, but the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest were now filled with magical animals, causing Professor Kettleburn's park to be overloaded. There was an advantage to placing these magical animals around Hogwarts. Creatures like thestrals, hippogriffs, and unicorns could be released directly into the local community of the Forbidden Forest. This relieved a lot of pressure from Hagrid and Professor Kettleburn, but many other magical animals still had to be placed in sheds with weather blankets for individual care. Despite the challenges, Hagrid and Professor Kettleburn seemed quite happy with their new responsibilities. After completing the transfer of magical animals, the two returned to Hogwarts non-stop, eager to take good care of the cute creatures in their eyes. Once the animals were settled, Anduin instructed the rest of the team to withdraw from the 3 parks. The German Aurors followed Andre back to the Ministry of Magic, while the British Aurors followed Amelia back to the UK to prepare for the next stage of action. With the parks cleared, Anduin finally had the time to deal with the 3 core hubs. It took him another day to almost completely dismantle the 3 magic spires, collecting all the alchemy props, equipment, and runes inside and outside the parks. He even retrieved the magic metal buried underground as conduits. After a thorough search, Anduin had extracted all the value from these parks, and his harvest was substantial. Among the items recovered were numerous products from the Silver Flash Trading Company, including 50 anti-theft monitors, 18 sets of tactical vests, and 240 magic lanterns. The loss of these items was minimal, and with some refurbishment, they could still be sold. Anduin felt like a bandit who had just looted a treasure trove. He had collected an impressive array of magical animal byproducts from several parks, including hair, feathers, horns, and scales from creatures like phoenixes, unicorns, and dragons. He even found a large box of invisible animal skins, perfect for making invisibility cloaks. The edible output, such as the sizzling honey secreted by billywig worms, was also abundant. Shaltir and Hog, 2 of his companions, were greedily indulging in the honey, with Shaltir even transforming into a bat to dive into a honey pot. Anduin didn't mind. They had earned their reward through their contributions to the operation. In addition to the animal byproducts, Anduin also harvested a significant amount of alchemical materials. These included over 200 pounds of agrabah alloy, 1 pound of refined mithril, 3 pounds of ferriulum steel, and more than 40 pounds of Aesir mithril. He had forcibly extracted these materials from the core hub and surrounding magical pipelines. He also acquired 3 stone giant magic circle conductors, which were long stone pillars originally made of granite. These pillars had been enhanced through alchemical treatments and inscribed with magic circles, allowing them to spread the magic circle's effects over a wide area. Such conductors were rare and valuable, akin to the essential wooden beams needed to build a sturdy house. Despite their seemingly lower value compared to other materials, these conductors were crucial for large-scale alchemical circles. Anduin had struggled with large-scale alchemy due to the lack of such equipment. These conductors were not just equipment, they were essential components for creating extensive magic arrays. After acquiring them, Anduin carefully preserved the magic lines on the conductors and stored them away. For the construction of the magic spire, Anduin selected some well-cut stone slabs, appreciating their high quality. He wasn't a construction foreman, so he only took what he needed. After thoroughly excavating the parks, he cast a simple shielding spell to cover the areas, ensuring they would remain hidden for a few days. Exhausted from the extensive work, Anduin sat on the steps in front of the magic spire. The past few days had been grueling, but the rewards were worth the effort. As he rested, the little thunderbird Saul approached him, a reminder of the magical world he was deeply entrenched in. As Anduin finally found a moment of respite, he noticed Saul, the little thunderbird, eagerly approaching him. Saul, who had been enjoying honey with Hogg and Shaltir, joyfully poured some honey into Anduin's mouth and affectionately rubbed his beak against Anduin's cheek. Anduin couldn't help but laugh at the display. Despite this being their first formal meeting, the spiritual connection between them was already strong. Saul's behavior was akin to that of a long-lost relative reuniting with family. Originally, Anduin had planned for Saul to return to the park with Newt and another Thunderbird, who was essentially Saul's sister. However, after meeting Anduin, Saul became completely attached to him and refused to leave his side. Anduin, sensing the deep dependence Saul had developed, decided to let the little Thunderbird stay with him. Shaltir, who had transformed into a small bat and was peeking out of a honeypot, watched Saul's affectionate behavior with a resentful expression. "Saul, how can you forget the old when you have the new? Have you forgotten that I was the one you met first? We've been together for so many days, but as soon as someone new comes along, you just follow them away." "You're really heartless," Shaltir complained angrily. She had developed a deep bond with Saul during her time in the breeding park, and seeing Saul so easily follow Anduin felt like a betrayal. Hogg, who was also enjoying honey, raised his head and hiccuped before taunting Shaltir. "That only proves that Saul has good judgment. Maybe it took him a while to see your true colors," he said with a smirk. Hogg then called out to Saul in animal language, which he could speak fluently, allowing him to communicate with most highly intelligent magical creatures. Saul responded with a couple of honks, acknowledging Hogg's call. "See, even though we just met, Saul clearly likes me more," Hogg boasted proudly to Shaltir. End of this chapter. Chapter 520. Bad Mood, Seeking Monthly Ticket Recommendation. "You bastard!" Shaltir screamed as she saw Thor only getting close to Anduin and Hogg. She immediately broke her guard, ran out of the honeypot, and charged straight at Hogg. In no time, the dog and the bat were entangled in a chaotic fight, splashing honey all over the floor. Anduin watched the scene unfold without a hint of anger. He knew these two were just fooling around, as they often did. However, seeing Shaltir covered in honey, he couldn't help but curl his lips in exasperation. They were truly two prodigal children, wasting resources without a second thought. "That's enough, you two. Stop it and clean up. We're leaving soon," Anduin said sternly, scratching Thor's chin affectionately, before turning his attention to the two troublemakers. At that moment, Shaltir was still perched on Hogg's neck, pinching his ear with her fingers. "Oh my lord, Shaltir has gone mad. I think she must have been locked up in Park Number 4 for too long. Why don't you take off her equipment and let her wake up in the sun?" Hog complained, trying to bite Shaltir, but she, in her bat form, was too agile and easily dodged his attack. "You're the fool! Do you know how much I suffered in that park? You dare to make fun of me? Today, I'll show you how powerful I am," Shaltir retorted, launching herself at Hog's face and scratching wildly. Anduin snorted coldly and stepped forward, giving each of them a sharp knock on the head. Instantly, Shaltir and Hog reverted to their human forms and squatted obediently on the ground, rubbing their heads in pain. They looked helplessly at Anduin, knowing they couldn't defy him. "My lord, what should we do after taking down these breeding parks? It's inappropriate to leave so many commoner wizards unattended," Shaltir asked, her playful demeanor replaced by genuine concern. "Do you really need to worry about that? I've been prepared for this. We'll use these wizards to fight against the Silver Spears," Hog sneered at Shaltir, but a glance from Anduin made him drop his foolish attitude. He then explained the follow-up plan seriously. After hearing Hog's explanation, Shaltir understood and asked, "No wonder you all wore Silver Spear uniforms during the attack. You wanted to frame them, but won't the Silver Spears eventually realize someone is impersonating them? Aren't you afraid of being exposed?" Exposed? These parks were their illegal strongholds. Can they deny it? And remember, the Silver Spears aren't a well-known organization in Germany. They're smugglers. Who will listen to a group of criminals? Hog retorted. So, the reason they placed so many people in the park was to use the legitimacy of these wizards to scare outsiders. But we can also use that legitimacy to make the club suffer. Is that what you mean? Shaltir asked, quickly grasping the strategy. Exactly, Anduin nodded. The Silver Spear's weakness is that they can only operate in the shadows. No matter how they try to cover up, they can't compete with the official Ministry of Magic. The biggest problem now is that the Ministry has been infiltrated by the Snidget. As long as the Snidget remains in power at the Ministry of Magic, our enemies include the official forces of Germany. It's futile to talk about completely overcoming them while they hold such influence. Eradicate the Silver Spear. We cannot guarantee legitimacy when fighting the club, Anduin stated firmly. It's like the concentric circle operation. If we blatantly attack the park, their defense force will be enough to delay Pete's intervention. At that time, with the support of someone, the leaders of the three parks will definitely not admit that they are employed by the club. This operation will eventually come to nothing. So, occupying and controlling the three parks secretly is the first step of the operation, but it is also the most critical part. Originally, I just wanted to use the Silver Spear disguised as a gun to arouse the resistance of these commoner Weza RDS against the club, Anduin continued. At the same time, indirectly strengthen the power of Andre, the faction of the Ministry of Magic, to weaken the influence of Jin Snidget and cause internal shocks in the club. However, the harvest of this trip far exceeded our imagination. Not only did we successfully complete the set goal, but we also obtained a lot of evidence from Claremont that the Silver Spear had penetrated the Ministry of Magic. With this evidence, we might be able to expand the strategic results of the next phase of the plan. Ideally, we could directly clear the Jin Snidget faction from the German Ministry of Magic. In this way, they are a bunch of pure criminals, and we can also act freely. After listening to Anduin's explanation, Shaltir frowned in confusion. Is it just to clear them out? Why don't you take this opportunity to eradicate the club together? It's not as simple as you think, Anduin replied, shaking his head with a serious expression. You have seen before that the Golden Snidget has the ability to appear in multiple places at the same time, and we still don't know how he does it. Even if we fight him directly, it will be difficult to guarantee that we will completely solve the opponent. Not to mention that our ultimate goal this time is actually the Rune Snake. I still hope to follow the Golden Snidget to find that guy, Anduin added, sneering. Of course, although it is difficult to guarantee that Golden Snidget will be killed, it is not a problem to use this opportunity to cut off some of his wings. Then what should we do next? Should we continue to monitor those Silver Spear guns? Hog asked. Although he had no resistance to watching the surveillance and even found it fun, squatting every day still made him a little uncomfortable due to his active nature. At present, we still have to keep it as secret as possible. Exposing the target too early will make us lose the initiative. Fortunately, apart from this operation, the protagonist of the next plan is Andre. We don't need to appear at the front desk. Remember, as long as we hide deeply, when we really stretch out our fangs, the greater the damage we will inflict on them, Anduin said, his eyes growing colder. Hey, it's like a poisonous snake hiding in the dark, isn't it? Shaltir said with a sly smile. I like this. I just pounce on them and bite them hard when they are so defenseless. On the other hand, Hog, looking at Anduin and Shaltir with smirking faces, lifted his hind paws and scratched his head a little bored. He didn't quite understand the tricks of these old schemers, but he knew that with his lord's cautious personality, he would definitely not let himself suffer. 2 days earlier, in the underground warehouse stronghold, while Anduin and others were transporting magical animals, Moody and the rest of the dozen or so aurors, or rather, the silver spears, were not idle. They spent most of the day in the warehouse building some necessary facilities. This included more than 50 temporary large compartments built with magic. The building materials were all demolished from those parks. Since they were made temporarily, the shape was also very simple, resembling ancient prison cells. One side of the compartment was attached to the wall. The other 3 sides were enclosed by metal fences shaped through deformation techniques, with an iron door placed haphazardly in the middle. The entire compartment resembled a large iron cage. Inside each compartment, Moody and his team had placed a bunk bed that could accommodate 1 person. At this moment, each bunk was occupied by wizards and muggles they had captured. Additionally, there were 2 large buckets for clean water, a long table, 2 benches, and a rudimentary toilet. The so-called toilet was merely a wooden box meant to provide some privacy, a simple potty. The reason for the compartment's humble appearance was primarily due to Moody's interpretation of his role as the Silver Spear. Anduin had only instructed him to take good care of the captives, with specific requirements. Do not kill them, do not reveal their identities, and do not be overly compassionate. Moody took these instructions to heart. Don't want to die? Don't be too soft-hearted, he mused. This meant that as long as he didn't kill them and could save them when they were on the brink of death, he had fulfilled his duty. Regardless of Anduin's original intentions, this was how Moody understood it. Under his direction, the cells were constructed in their current state. He did, however, humanely separate men and women. By the time Moody and his team had finished securing the cells and locking up all the captives, it was noon. The effects of the hypnotic potion these people had inhaled were beginning to wear off, and they started to wake up. Many of them were still lost in sweet dreams, thanks to the high quality of the hypnotic potion brewed by Anduin, which guaranteed no side effects like headaches or hangovers. As they slowly regained consciousness, they were bewildered by their surroundings. What's going on? Didn't we sleep in our dormitory beds last night? Why does everything look so strange now? They wondered. They saw rough iron fences in front of them and felt the hard, uncomfortable wood beneath them. The air was filled with a stale, decayed smell. Why are there other people lying next to me? I remember the dormitory isn't a double room, but a large bed for couples. What kind of place is this? Why is the ceiling a hollowed-out fence, and why can't I see the sun? Am I still dreaming and haven't woken up? End of this chapter.